Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Rebirth of Naruto, Saving Jiraiya at the Beginning. Chapter 21. The question of a wife is the most fatal. Although he had expected this, when Naruto really experienced the scene at this moment, he found that he really didn't know what words to use to respond to the questioning of his beloved. Because whether it was Jiraiya, Kakashi teacher, Tsunade mother-in-law, Captain Yamato, etc., he had countless reasons, but Hinata, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. After a few seconds of silence, Naruto did not choose to escape, but chose to respond positively. Hinata took a deep breath, then raised her head and looked at Naruto, and what caught her eye was the black cloud-red robe. Hinata was startled and broke free from Naruto's hand. She stood up instantly, then staggered back a few steps and almost fell. Naruto tried to help her, but Hinata signaled him not to come over. Hinata looked at Naruto in disbelief, and said with tears in her eyes, "Naruto-kun, you actually, really, betrayed Konoha. And you actually joined Akatsuki." Naruto covered his forehead. He had to change his clothes quickly, and the reputation of the Tien organization had to be improved quickly. "No, Hinata, have you forgotten the 3 sentences I told you when I went to see you that day? No matter what happens, you have to believe me. I am still Uzumaki Naruto, the boy who aims to be the Hokage. This will not change." After Naruto's response, Hinata seemed to calm down a little. She continued to ask, "Then why are you wearing Akatsuki's clothes?" Naruto quickly replied, "I didn't think of changing it at the time, but I remembered it today. If you don't like it, I'll take it off." As he said that, Naruto took off his clothes, revealing his original clothes. Naruto smiled and said, "It's okay now." Then he was about to come over and hug Hinata. Hinata said tenderly, "Don't come over." Okay, I won't come over." Naruto quickly hid aside. Hinata wiped her tears, sniffed, and said aggrievedly, "Tell me. Why did you lie to me and not come to Ichiraku ramen restaurant that evening?" Naruto sighed. "I didn't go to you in advance that day to give you a shot of prevention. I chose to act that day, and you know the matter now. After that, I can't show up in the village at all." Hinata said angrily. "Then why can't you tell me clearly in person first?" "Naruto, if I tell you clearly, you will definitely stop me, so of course I can't say it." Hinata turned her back again in anger and complained. "Then why did I inject chakra into this mark so many times, but you didn't show up, tell me?" Naruto sighed and said, "It's not that I don't want to come, I'm afraid to see you, I don't know how to face you." Hearing Naruto's guilty tone, Hinata seemed to have a little softness in her heart. She tilted her head and looked over secretly, and found that Naruto's face was very melancholy, with a taste that could not be told to outsiders. Under the moonlight, Naruto's figure appeared so lonely. In an instant, Hinata could no longer hold back the worry and longing of the past few days. With a swish, she threw herself into Naruto's arms. Hinata cried, "Naruto-kun, they all said that you betrayed Konoha, but I don't believe it, but the facts are in front of me, tell me, what happened to you, why did you do such a thing, woo-woo-woo?" Naruto hugged Hinata, leaned his cheek against Hinata's head, and said softly, "I'm sorry, Hinata, I have my own difficulties, I hope you can understand me, I still say that, please believe me, every word I said to you." Hinata raised her head, looked at Naruto hopefully and said, "Naruto-kun, take me away, let me stay by your side and face it with you, okay? I won't hold you back." Naruto he looked at her lovingly, touched her cheek and said, "No, what I'm going to do is too dangerous, and I can't let you stay with me for the time being." Hinata's eyes were full of worry. She looked at Naruto and said, "The village has issued a wanted notice for you." Naruto nodded and said, "Yeah, it's okay. It's mainly you. Take care of yourself, you know. Also, don't rush chakra to the Flying Thunder God's mark for no reason. You're going to die." Hinata pouted and said, "Who told you to lie to me?" Okay. Naruto coaxed Hinata again, hugged her in his arms and said, "I will be very busy in the future. I have something to do. You believe me, everything I do is for the future of the ninja world." Quote, "In the future, if you miss me, or really need to find me, activate the Flying Thunder God's mark, and I will come to you when I am free. If I don't come immediately, it must be something. Do you understand?" Hinata nodded in Naruto's arms. She seemed to have predicted from Naruto's words that in the future, the number of times she and Naruto would meet would become less and less. In the territory of the Cloud Country. After Naruto comforted Hinata and made a promise with her, he released the shadow clone he had reserved, restored the Sage Mode, and rushed back again with the Thunder God. When Konan saw Naruto coming back, she said sleepily, "Junior brother, you're back." Naruto apologized, "I was delayed for a while, dealing with some personal matters." Nagato opened his eyes, looked at Naruto and said, "I sent the 6 paths of pain down, spread out in a line, and have been searching." Naruto nodded and said, "Thank you for your hard work, senior brother, I'll do it next." Nagato nodded, then called the 6 paths of pain back to the big bird, and then closed his eyes to rest for a while. Naruto sat on the bird's head and turned on the immortal perception mode. In this way, when the sky in the east turned pale, Naruto finally noticed a trace of Sasuke. Found it. Nagato and Konan looked at Naruto, and Naruto closed his eyes and said, "Southwest direction." Hearing this, Nagato's mind moved slightly, and he controlled the big bird and flew towards the southwest direction. Somewhere in the forest, Suigetsu stretched lazily, yawned and said, "You know what, if we don't light this fire tonight, it will be really cold to sleep." Jugo stood up and stretched his muscles. Karen looked at Suigetsu with contempt and said, "That's because you are weak. Look at me, Sasuke-kun, how strong I am, and I sleep well." Suigetsu looked at Karen with contempt and said, "I say, can you stop saying Sasuke-kun, Sasuke-kun every day, like a crazy girl?" Upon hearing this, Karen immediately clenched her fists in anger and roared, "Backyar, you guy, what are you saying in front of Sasuke-kun?" Suigetsu quickly hid behind Jugo. Karen, this guy, gets angry and wants to beat Suigetsu into a puddle of water at any time. Sasuke stood up and said coldly, "Okay, stop making trouble. Everyone hurry up and wash up. After breakfast, we will continue to Yunlei Gorge." Suiyu poked her head out from behind Chongwu and laughed, "Did you hear that? Your Sasuke-kun asked you to fetch water." Karen looked at Suiyu and clenched her fists fiercely, but she didn't dare to neglect Sasuke-kun, because just now, her dear Sasuke-kun did say that he wanted to fetch water to wash his face. She had to go quickly, otherwise it would be a terrible thing for Sasuke-kun's handsome face to have no water to wash his face. So, Karen, without thinking, grabbed Suiyu and went with her to fetch water. Suigetsu complained, "Why do you want me to go?" Karen raised her hand and slapped him, saying, "Nonsense, you are a water-style ninja, if you don't go and absorb the water, who will?" Suigetsu, "Then I might as well just use water style." Karen, "Sasuke-kun wants natural water, understand?" Suigetsu scratched his head and said angrily, "Really?" The two walked and complained to each other. Jugo came to Sasuke and looked at him and said, "Sasuke, are we really going to hunt the 8 tails?" Sasuke closed his eyes and said, "Why, you don't have confidence in me." Jugo shook his head and said, "That's not the case. It's just that the 8 tails is a tailed beast, and it's not a small enemy after all. I just thought that if we rely on our Eagle squad alone and the ninjas from Kumogakure come to support us, we may not be able to leave." Sasuke opened his eyes and looked at Jugo and said, "Don't worry, I will try to make a quick decision. Now I am no longer the me with a simple Sharingan. It only takes a few minutes for this kind of tailed beast to succumb to my pupil power." After that, Sasuke closed his eyes and meditated again. Jugo didn't say anything else. He didn't worry about danger, and he could even die for Sasuke. But he felt that Sasuke might suffer in this operation, and there must be danger, which was his main concern. As for whether he could win, this was not a problem that Jugo considered. In his world, Sasuke was the reincarnation of Kimimaro, and he only needed to follow and protect him. Here, Karen urged Suigetsu to absorb more water. "If Sasuke feels that the water for washing is not enough, you will be in trouble." Suigetsu rolled his eyes at Karen and manipulated the water escape technique to absorb water from the river. Suddenly, Karen frowned and looked at the sky not far away with a nervous expression. Seeing Karen like this, Suigetsu asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" Karen said vigilantly, "There is a very strong chakra, and there are quite a lot of people. It seems to be coming towards us." Suigetsu frowned and said, no way, we just stayed in the cloud country for one night, and it's very close to the hidden cloud village. They are so far away, how can they be found? Karen said calmly. It doesn't look like they are ninjas from the cloud country. Come on, let's go back to Sasuke. Here, Naruto's Sage mode has locked onto the Eagle team, especially in the perception mode. Seeing the two pillars sitting cross-legged there, Naruto couldn't help but smile knowingly. This is the first time Naruto has met Sasuke since his rebirth. Brother Nagato, it's just in front, speed up. Nagato, okay. The big bird shouted in the air and flew directly at high speed. At this time, Sasuke opened his eyes and looked up at the sky in front of him. The sky was full of clouds, and the sky was full of clouds. In the sky, a big bird flew by. Then, swish swish swish. Like dumplings, Naruto, with the 6 paths of pain, 7 people, appeared in front of Sasuke. High in the sky, Konan and Nagato stayed on the big bird and continued to circle in the sky nearby. Naruto looked at Sasuke in front of him, waved and smiled. Hey, Sasuke, long time no see, still so handsome. Hey, Jugo, still so cool. Sasuke saw the person clearly and said in surprise, Naruto, how come you are here, and your clothes? Sasuke looked at Naruto and looked at himself. What's going on? Why did Naruto also wear Akatsuki's clothes? Naruto raised his hand and said, don't get me wrong, I didn't join Akatsuki, and I didn't wear couple outfits with you on purpose. I'll change the outfit when I go back, so we can tell the difference next time we meet. Sasuke stood up and looked at the 6 paths pain behind Naruto, frowning and saying, what do the 6 people behind you mean? Naruto smiled and said, oh, let me introduce you. This is the one I recently recruited, the 6 paths pain, a member of the Celestial Organization. Nagato saw his junior brother introduce himself so solemnly, and his mind moved slightly. The Celestial Path Pain stood up and nodded to Sasuke and said, hello, I'm a member of the Celestial Organization, the Celestial Path Pain. Then, the Animal Path Pain, the Hungry Ghost Path Pain, the Shira Path Pain, etc., came out one by one to greet Sasuke. Sasuke was shocked. He had seen the strength of the 6 paths pain. Aren't these people all members of the Akatsuki organization, the subordinates of Uchiha Madara? When did they become Naruto's subordinates? What's the situation with Naruto now? How awesome is he? Sasuke looked at Naruto and asked in confusion, you betrayed Konoha? Naruto smacked his lips and said, almost. Anyway, if I say no, you won't believe it. Konoha village has started to want me. Sasuke said in disbelief. Haven't you always dreamed of becoming Hokage? Naruto, what happened to you? Even you betrayed the village. Sasuke never expected it. Originally, it was thought that only Avengers or truth-seekers like him and Orochimaru would betray Konoha. Who would have thought that someone like Naruto, who has such a strong consciousness of fire and such a strong dream of being a Hokage, could betray Konoha? Uchiha Madara was right. This world is too fake. Sasuke-kun. Karen pulled Suigetsu and trotted all the way to Sasuke's side. Naruto saw who was coming and greeted with a smile. Hey, Karen, long time no see, you are much prettier, Suigetsu, you are still so handsome. Karen saw that it was Naruto who had been chasing Sasuke, but when she heard Naruto say that she was beautiful, Karen said shyly, oh, you are an annoying person, but you still have some advantages, that is, you like to tell the truth, really, ha 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 ha. Suigetsu stood aside and looked at Karen as if she was a lunatic. However, Naruto was wearing Akatsuki costume, and there was 6 paths of pain standing behind him, which also surprised Suigetsu. What's going on? How did the ninja of Konoha get involved with Akatsuki? Sasuke stepped forward, smiled at Naruto and said, Naruto, I don't know what you have encountered during this period, and I don't know what means you used to make some members of Akatsuki obey you. I just want to know that you are here today. It should not be as simple as coming to me to reminisce about the past. Naruto responded with a smile. Same, I just come to borrow someone from you, and I will return it to you after I use it. Sasuke frowned and said, who? When Karen heard that she wanted to borrow someone, she immediately shrank behind Sasuke and looked at Naruto and said, I tell you, Naruto, don't have any ideas about me. Just because I am beautiful, you just want to borrow me to go out and play. I tell you, I only belong to Sasuke in this life. As she said, Karen hugged one of Sasuke's arms, put it on her chest, and rubbed it back and forth. Oh, Sasuke-kun, I will marry you in this life. That little bad guy Naruto, don't even think about getting me. Even if he gets me, he can only get my body, not my heart. My heart will always be open to you. While saying this, she still danced back and forth on Sasuke's body in ecstasy. Sasuke rolled his eyes at Karen and said, all right, I haven't said I'll land it to you yet. Naruto laughed at the side. I really want to record this scene and put it on the big screen at Sasuke and Sakura's wedding. Rolling playback. Ha 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 ha, Sasuke will definitely die on the spot. Naruto raised his hand and said, Karen, don't get me wrong, I know you and Sasuke are a perfect match. I'm not here to borrow you, I'm just here to borrow Jugo. When Karen heard that Naruto actually said that she and Sasuke were a perfect match, her favorability towards Naruto increased immediately. The boy has good taste. Jugo frowned and said, lend it to me. Sasuke looked at Naruto coldly and said, what do you want to borrow Jugo for? Naruto smiled and said, sorry, I have no comment on what the Ten organization does. Sasuke sneered and said, Ten organization, when did Akatsuki change it to Ten organization? Naruto said, the 10 that I founded will soon be resounding throughout the ninja world. What do you think, Sasuke? Your eagle is going to soar, right? Are you interested in joining my organization? Let's join forces. Sasuke snorted coldly and said, no need. My eagle is not bound by anyone. Also, Jugo is my man, I won't lend it to you. Sasuke turned around and was about to leave. Naruto frowned slightly and shouted, Sasuke. All living beings in the ninja world cannot escape the coverage of the sky. The eagle also has to soar under the sky. Oh, Sasuke's body stagnated, and his Mangekyo Sharingan opened instantly. He turned back and looked at Naruto coldly, then I want to see if this sky can be scratched. The sword was broken, and the sword was cut off. With a sound of slam. A cold light appeared, and Sasuke drew his sword from his waist and rushed towards Naruto. Naruto shook his head. The rain stopped, the sky cleared, and Nijiru felt that he was fine again. Nagato knew the situation below through the eyes of Six Paths Pain. When Sasuke attacked, Tendo Pain came to Naruto in an instant, raised his hand, and prepared to use Shinra Tensei to protect Naruto from any harm. Naruto pulled Tendo Pain aside and said, hey, senior brother, don't interfere. It's just right, I haven't fought with Sasuke for a long time. As he said that, Naruto logged out directly. Senjutsu chakra appeared on his palm, and the frog group hands unfolded. Sasuke slashed with a knife, Naruto dodged, and then punched him. Sasuke snorted coldly, tilted his head and dodged without caring. Under the Mangekyo Sharingan, all fancy attacks were useless. The next second, Sasuke's cheek was hit directly by a fist, and the whole person flew backwards. Karen exclaimed, Sasuke. Suigetsu and Jugo were a little surprised. You know, Sasuke is very strong now. How could he suffer at the hands of Naruto after just one encounter? Although Sasuke flew backwards, he was still in fighting state. He turned sideways, held the knife in his hand and inserted it into the ground, and stopped himself through the resistance of the ground. He half crouched on the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looked at Naruto, and frowned slightly. He had obviously dodged it, so why was he still hit? Looking at Naruto carefully, he found that Naruto's chakra seemed to have changed a bit, and there were some orange marks beside his eyes. Is it the power of the Nine Tails? No, he had seen the power of the Nine Tails before, but it was not this kind of aura. Hey, Sasuke, what's wrong? You're not going to stop now, are you? Seeing Naruto's smile, Sasuke stood up and snorted coldly, you are indeed a little different from before, but I want to tell you that I am not the same person as before. As he spoke, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of Sasuke's eyes. With a bang, purple chakra gushed out of Sasuke's body, and the skeletal Susanoo unfolded directly. Naruto looked up, crossed his arms, touched his chin and said, Sasuke, your Susanoo is only a half-body skeleton, tut tut tut, you haven't even put on the armor, you are still a long way from the Crow Tengu form. Sasuke raised his eyebrows and looked at Naruto, and couldn't help but feel a little more hatred. This guy not only knows his Susanoo so well, but also criticizes it and looks so contemptuous, which makes Sasuke very unhappy. That's enough for you. Sasuke attacked Naruto directly. With the addition of Susanoo, Sasuke's attack range was greatly improved. Senjutsu, Big Ball Rasengan. Sasuke snorted coldly and blocked it directly. Naruto gritted his teeth, pressed the Big Ball Rasengan with his palm, and kept spinning Sasuke's Susanoo. With a bang, the Rasengan exploded, and the two retreated. Okay, today I'll try how strong your Susanoo's defense is. Sasuke summoned multiple shadow clones directly. Sasuke sneered, this move again, haha, Naruto, the use of this move is precisely the manifestation of your own insignificance and weak power. Naruto rolled the balls and smiled, as long as the moves are useful, why bother so much? After that, the 100 Narutos who had just been separated rolled the balls and rushed towards Sasuke. Senjutsu, Big Ball, multiple Rasengan, bang 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 bang. One ball after another, directly blasted towards Sasuke's Susanoo. Even the top of his head, Naruto did not let go. Sasuke, look at this. Senjutsu, Super Big Ball Rasengan. Sasuke gritted his teeth and resisted with difficulty. Unknowingly, Susanoo had a crack. Sasuke thought to himself, Naruto, you idiot. When did you get such a strong power? Finally, Naruto used Flying Thunder God to catch up and then used another Rasengan to feed Sasuke, which directly cracked 3 exoskeletons of Sasuke's Susanoo. Wow, Sasuke coughed up blood and flew backwards. Seeing this, Karen called out to Sasuke and was about to go over, but was stopped by Suigetsu, who told her to stay put, saying that Sasuke was not that fragile. Naruto patted the dust off his hands, looked at Sasuke and said, Sasuke, you are not good enough. You are like this, teach. It's hard to scold me, it seems that your brother Itachi really went too easy on you. Quote. Sasuke stood up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looked at Naruto, and said viciously, I tell you, Naruto, you are not allowed to mention that name, you don't deserve it. Naruto looked at Sasuke calmly and said, Sasuke, actually I have something to say to you. Before Itachi challenged you to a duel, he came to me. He asked me to take good care of you to prevent you from taking revenge on Konoha and going to the opposite side of Konoha. I personally think that you should understand Itachi's painstaking efforts. At the very least, don't mix with those people in the Akatsuki organization anymore. Sasuke snorted coldly and said, you are like this now, and you are not qualified to say me. Besides, how much do you know about Itachi? You are so shameless and ask me to understand my brother. Quote. Sasuke roared, and more blood flowed from the corners of his eyes. I tell you, it is because of the so-called village in your mouth that Itachi's tragedy, and you know nothing and understand nothing. Ah, Sasuke roared loudly, as if he remembered Itachi's tragedy, the hatred of genocide, and his only friend, who was now high and mighty in front of him, pointing fingers and making comments. Sasuke ran away directly on the spot. Naruto looked at the crazy Sasuke, and in fact he wanted to say that he not only knew, but also knew all of this. Rich purple chakra gushed out, and the skeleton Susanoo evolved rapidly, with 2 arms, and then muscles grew out, and then armor grew out directly, and directly came to the half-adult state. Karen felt Sasuke's changes on the side, and couldn't help hugging herself and said, Sasuke's breath changed all of a sudden, and the whole chakra became dark and cold. Jugo frowned and said, Sasuke's power is also changing. Quote. Suiyu snorted coldly and said, I've already said that Sasuke is not such a weakling. Naruto shook his head. Forget it. He would fight with this madman and make him paralyzed. It was just right that he didn't have to go to Yunlei Gorge. So, he created a shadow clone and then added the form change directly to the Rasengan. The sound of breaking through the air came slowly. Because of Naruto's technique, the wind of the airflow continued to intensify. Karen then exclaimed, what a powerful wind escape. Suiyu pulled Jugo and Karen and quickly dodged behind. While pulling, he shouted, you all know how powerful it is, why don't you get out of the way quickly? Sasuke has Susanoo, it's okay, but we don't. If this wind escape explodes and spins, I tell you, we may be spun to pieces. Sasuke looked at Naruto as if he saw a long-lost opponent. Naruto, it seems that you have grown a lot in the days when I was away. Well, it will be more interesting for me to defeat you like this. Quote. Sasuke stepped out and shouted, Naruto, let me show you my special move. Sasuke bent his bow and put an arrow on it. He pulled open the ancient bow of Ten no Maga, and put the arrow of Kagutsuchi's flaming shield on it. Sasuke's kaleidoscope eyes stared at Naruto. At this moment, his eyes revealed a real killing intent. Naruto, I want you to die. The arrow was on the string, ready to go. With a whoosh, it flew directly towards Naruto. Naruto was not to be outdone, and threw the spiral shuriken in his hand directly. The two people in fate, just like the Fourth Ninja World War in the previous life, the last blow of the two people was also like this, sending out their strongest blows at the moment. Boom! The Sage Rasen Shuriken and Kagutsuchi's flame shield arrow collided with each other, evenly matched, and exploded directly on the spot, flattening the area within a few miles. Jugo quickly transformed himself into a sage armor, protected Karen and Mizuki, and hid in a low-lying area. Although Sasuke was using Susanoo, he was also blown away by the shock wave generated by the explosion. In addition, in order to fight against Naruto, the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan was overdrawn for a time. Now, as soon as he stopped, the pain in his eyes came slowly. Naruto, on the other hand, flew away directly on the Thunder God and returned to the big bird. Sasuke looked at the dust that was blown up in front of him, trying to sense Naruto's position, but he was unable to do so. Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan was overloaded and went on strike, retreating to a 3 Magatama Sharingan. He half-squatted on the ground, covering his eyes and breathing heavily. In the previous wave, Sasuke's Susanoo directly changed into 3 forms. It was a forced opening, which consumed a lot of Sasuke's chakra. Cough cough cough. In a low-lying stone, Jugo's cursed armor faded. Karen half-prone on the ground coughed, fanned the dust in front of her, and then raised her body to look for Sasuke's trace. There, Sasuke-kun. Karen ran over anxiously, and Suigetsu looked at the battle in front of her, shook her head and sighed, this destructive power is too scary. Jugo was always alert, looking at Suigetsu and said, Sasuke's situation is not good, we have to go over and take a look. As soon as he finished speaking, Tinian, with a chirp, Jugo found that he was actually floating up, and then he was directly sucked over by an inexplicable force. Suigetsu shouted, Jugo. As he said that, he pulled out the beheading sword directly and beheaded Tendo Pain. How could the other 5 Pains let him have his way? They pressed on him directly. Seeing that Suigetsu could not rescue him, Jugo turned into a sage and wanted to fight with Tendo Pain, but the result? Naruto jumped down from the big bird, and with a bang, he hammered Jugo directly into the ground. Jugo coughed up blood, and at the moment he fainted, he was amazed at the powerful power of a sage. Naruto smiled, and the orange sign of the sage turned into a sage, and it returned to the corner of his eyes again. He put his palm close to Jugo's body, and then took out a scroll, and then Naruto began to make a seal. Sealing technique suction seal. A buzzing sound sounded. Naruto put one hand on Jugo's back and the other hand on the sealing scroll. The curse seal power on Jugo's body was moving to the sealing scroll continuously through Naruto's body. Tendo Pain was guarding beside Naruto, protecting him. Here, Karen has already noticed the difficulties of Suigetsu and Jugo, but Sasuke can't stand up at all, so she has to protect Sasuke first. So, Karen stretched out her arm, handed it to Sasuke and said, Sasuke-kun, don't pity me, I'm a delicate flower, just suck as much as you want. Sasuke panted, bit Karen's arm, and then sucked it in. Karen immediately tilted her head back, her eyes intoxicated, her mouth slightly opened, and she couldn't help but say, ah. Here, Suigetsu saw that Jugo had become a child, holding a beheading sword, and shouted at Sasuke, it's not over yet, Sasuke, Jugo is about to be sucked dry by them. Naruto rolled his eyes at Suigetsu and said, hey, Suigetsu, you, watch your words, okay. Exclamation mark. Quote, Sasuke heard Suigetsu's cry for help, took the knife, and rushed out directly. Karen put down her sleeves and complained shyly, really, after sucking people, she just left without saying a word. Sasuke came over here, picked up the knife and rushed over. Naruto gestured to Tendo Pain. So, Shinra Tensei. The powerful repulsive force attacked from all directions and directly knocked Sasuke and Suigetsu out. At this time, the two realized that the opponent's strength had never really unfolded from the beginning. Sasuke looked at Naruto, who was so calm and indifferent, and couldn't help feeling very unhappy. In the previous fight, he had used all his strength, but Naruto seemed to be fine. Could it be that his strength is no longer as good as Naruto's? Sasuke gritted his teeth. Naruto was very happy, because the purpose of this trip has been accomplished. Just as he was about to say a few more words to Sasuke, the shadow clone of Yuyin was broken. The smile on Naruto's face disappeared instantly. Because the shadow clone disappeared, the process of the battle was also fed back to the main body accordingly. The person who came was Obito. It seems that he also found that something was wrong with Nagato. After all, he had not contacted the Akatsuki organization for a long time. "Excuse me, Sasuke, I have something urgent, so I won't talk to you for the time being." "Jugo is fine, don't worry, I just borrowed some things." "Oh, brother, you know that old guy Danzo, I know you want to kill him, so I'm here to give you a good beating of Danzo and leave him half alive. If you have time, you can go and harvest it. Don't thank me." As he said, Naruto greeted Six Paths Pain, and then disappeared directly on the spot. Suigetsu was surprised, holding the big sword, and said, "Disappeared." Quote, "A bird cried and a big bird flew by." Naruto stood on the big bird, looked at Sasuke and his group below, and waved his hand. There was no trace of a smile on Sasuke's face. The hidden treasures of the village are still there. The Hidden Rain Village. Naruto brought Nagato and Konan back with a flying thunder god and landed on the platform. As soon as he landed, he saw the masked man sitting in the place where Tendo Pain usually likes to stay. Naruto smiled slightly, walked towards the big bird, and shouted at the masked man, "Hey! What's wrong with you? You came to someone else's house without saying hello, and you destroyed the shadow clone left by the person. Is that right?" The masked man slowly turned his head, and the Mangekyo Sharingan appeared in his only pupil. He just looked at Naruto quietly for a long time before slowly speaking and asking in confusion, "Naruto?" Naruto put his hands on his waist and said, "Yes, it's me." "What's the matter?" The masked man stood up and pointed at Nagato behind him and said sternly, "Nagato, why cut off contact with me? Akatsuki has a new mission, don't you know?" Nagato was still on the big bird, with no expression in his cold reincarnation eyes, and he didn't say a word. The masked man couldn't help but feel depressed. This was not a good sign. Konan came out, looked at the masked man and said, "Banara. From today on, we are no longer members of Akatsuki, and the uniforms on our bodies will be changed later. From today on, the Hidden Rain Village will be ruled by the 10 organization. I hope you know that." The masked man snorted and sneered, "10. Ha 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 ha, it's really funny. When did you come up with this name for playing house?" Konan was a little angry. Because now, insulting the 10 organization is insulting junior brother Naruto. As for Nagato, he directly expressed it with actions, and the Six Paths Pain was dispatched directly. The masked man frowned and said in a deep voice, "Why, you have grown up and dared to fight with me." Naruto raised his hand to signal, smiled and looked at the masked man and said, "Senior brother, it's raining outside, you and senior sister Konan go in first, I will talk to this person alone." Nagato looked at the masked man and frowned, but Nagato had seen the power and ability of the masked man, and he was worried that junior brother Naruto might suffer, so he was not very reassured. Naruto looked back at him and said, "It's okay, you guys go in. I just want to talk to him alone about something." Looking at Naruto's determined eyes, Nagato nodded. "I understand." After that, Nagato controlled the bird and walked into the platform. Konan followed behind Nagato. Before entering, she looked back at Naruto. As soon as Nagato and Konan left, the voice of the masked man came slowly, "You don't have a Sharingan yourself, and, as far as I know, there is no foundation for practicing illusions in your training system." Naruto smiled slightly, turned slowly, and looked at the masked man. The masked man continued to stare at Naruto and said, "In this world, the only thing that can change people's consciousness without any influence and unconsciously is Uchiha Shisui's eyes, the strongest illusion, no gods." Nagato and Konan, you changed their consciousness like this, and betrayed the Akatsuki organization. Naruto did not deny it. The masked man snorted coldly and paced around Naruto. If I'm right, the reason you can use Shisui's Koto Amatsukami should be inseparable from Uchiha Itachi's help. The masked man looked at Naruto and said, I'm really curious, Naruto, you, who has been aiming to be the Hokage since childhood, actually betrayed Konoha and became a traitor. What puzzles me even more is that you actually took the strongest illusion eye given by Itachi and used it on Nagato and Konan instead of Sasuke, and even created an organization called Tien. It's really innovative, and it's very puzzling. After all, I still don't understand why. What on earth are you doing this for? Quote. Looking at the masked man's eager eyes, Naruto smiled disdainfully, I am so puzzling. Naruto spread his hands, and then with an interrogative tone, he looked at the masked man and said, then, what is even more puzzling to me is that a person who has been loved and cared for by his master and mistress since childhood, would one day sneak into Konoha while his master's wife was giving birth, and take his master's wife away and release the Nine Tails with the master's newborn son as a threat. Naruto said word by word, and the masked man's expression hidden under the mask became colder and colder. Even if the master hadn't arrived in time, that guy might have manipulated the Nine Tails and slapped his mistress who had always loved him to death with one palm. Speaking of this, Naruto sneered a few times, looked at the masked man and said, you said, the master and mistress are so good to him, why did this scumbag do this? This is a retaliation for kindness. Enough. The masked man shouted coldly, pointing at Naruto and roaring, what do you know? What do you know about this world? Do you know how disgusting the hatred in this hypocritical world is? But what does it matter? Naruto shouted, interrupting the masked man. Naruto looked at the masked man and roared, no matter how hypocritical, unreal, and disgusting this world is, what does it have to do with your master and his wife? Throughout your life, what have they done to you? Ah. My parents treat you like their own son, what about you? When I was born, they put explosive talismans all over my body. Is this the time when people can do it? Ah, speak up. Quote. The masked man was yelled at by Naruto, and he was at a loss, and even took a few steps back. He stared at Naruto, and asked in a murmur, who are you? Why do you know? Naruto sneered, to attack someone, you must attack their heart. Obito, since I could persuade you to turn back in my previous life, I can still hit your heart in this life. Naruto made a seal. Transformation technique. Transformation. With a bang, Naruto transformed into a woman. The masked man widened his eyes, stepped back repeatedly, pointed at Naruto, and trembled. You. What's wrong, Obito? Why do you treat master and master's wife like this? Also, have you forgotten your promise with me? Aren't you going to become Hokage, Obito? Quote. Naruto transformed into Rin, looked at Obito, and asked a soul-searching question. Obito looked at Rin in front of him, the biggest secret hidden in his heart, especially that soul-searching question. It reminded him of what Rin once said. Before becoming Hokage, Rin said she would always pay attention to me. Pain. It hurts so much. This painful memory. And this Naruto is so scary. Obito didn't even think about it, and he escaped directly into the time-space vortex. The White Zetsu Army Base. Obito came out of the time and space vortex. Due to the huge impact from Naruto, he almost lost his balance when he landed. At this time, there was a rustling sound from the ground. The black and white Zetsu, who looked like aloe vera, came out. White Zetsu. The latest news is that Konoha's Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Naruto, has defected from the village, and seems to have hooked up with our Akatsuki's Six Paths Pain, and attacked Sasuke and his group who were going to capture the Eight Tails. Black Zetsu. I don't understand what this Nine Tails kid is doing, but it's good this way, we can better capture the Nine Tails. White Zetsu. But according to Sasuke's White Zetsu's response, Naruto seems to have put on Akatsuki's clothes, and Six Paths Pain seems to have come together with him. Black Zetsu frowned and said, it's impossible, Nagato. Nagato has betrayed Akatsuki, Obito said. Black and White Zetsu said in unison in surprise, how could it be? Obito narrowed his eyes slightly. Naruto, this guy, already knew his true identity, and seemed to know everything about his past intelligence. How could this be possible? Could it be that Kakashi leaked it? No, Kakashi thought he was dead, so there was no way he could tell Naruto this, otherwise, Kakashi should have recognized him in the Iron Country, but that idiot showed no sign of recognition. The more Obito thought about it, the more confused he became. Originally, Naruto's behavior was very puzzling to him, because his motives were completely unclear. Now, it's good, people directly know his identity that he has hidden for so long, which makes Obito guess that Naruto knew it alone, or the top leaders of Konoha also knew it. Black Zetsu said, "The Samsara Eye is still in Nagato's hands. If Nagato betrays Akatsuki and is not under our control, the Samsara Eye cannot fall into the hands of others." Obito nodded. This is natural. The Samsara Eye is the most critical step in the Moon Plan, and there must be no mistakes. However, Obito cannot go to the Hidden Rain village for the time being. He needs to investigate Naruto, otherwise he will not be at ease. White Zetsu looked at Obito and said, "The only good news is that Sasuke seems to have successfully captured the 8 tails." Obito said, "Oh, you still have energy after fighting Naruto?" White Zetsu said, "After fighting Naruto, it seems that he has grown a little bit. Susanoo has evolved very thoroughly, but his pupil power has been overdrawn. After resting, he went to hunt the 8 tails again." Obito snorted coldly and said, "Finally, there is some good news." After thinking about it, Obito felt that he should go to pick up Sasuke in person. After all, there are too many unstable factors now. Naruto alone has interfered with many of his plans. Where are Sasuke and the others now? White Zetsu responded, "They are rushing to the place we agreed on, and they should be there soon." Obito smiled and said, "Then, I have to go and greet our hero." As he said that, Obito activated the space-time ninjutsu and disappeared on the spot. A building site. Sasuke sat there, breathing heavily, with Killer Bee, who was burned by Amaterasu, lying next to him. With Sasuke's help, Jugo has recovered. He held the unconscious Karen in one hand and Suigetsu, who was blasted into a half-dead jelly state by the 8 tails human cannon, in the other hand. "Are you okay, Sasuke?" Sasuke panted and said, "Ah. Hurry up, the meeting place is ahead." Sasuke stood up and prepared to carry Killer Bee. "Don't bother so much, Sasuke, I'm here." As soon as he finished speaking, Obito came out of the time and space vortex and saw Killer Bee on the ground. Obito said happily, "Very good, I believe you Sasuke, you can do it." Sasuke snorted coldly and said, "As agreed, I brought the 8 tails." Obito nodded. Sasuke saw that the agreement was fulfilled and turned to leave. "Wait a minute, Sasuke." Obito called Sasuke and looked at him and said, "Where are you going next?" Because according to the agreement between Obito and Sasuke, Sasuke hunted the 8 tails for him. After the success, the eagle officially left the Akatsuki organization and was no longer restricted by the Akatsuki organization. Sasuke looked at the forest in front of him and said without looking back, "First, I have to go to heal my wounds. When I am healed, I will go to Konoha." After that, Sasuke prepared to leave with Jugo. Listening to Sasuke's answer, Obito recalled. After telling Sasuke the truth about Itachi, Obito once asked Sasuke, "After knowing the truth about Itachi, will you still choose to inherit Itachi's will and protect Konoha?" Sasuke's answer was, he did not approve of Itachi's way of survival, which was to protect the village at the cost of his life. Because compared to the pain of losing Itachi, he would rather not have this way of survival. Sacrificing Itachi in exchange for peace was not what he wanted at all. Now that he has known the truth, he can't inherit Itachi's will and continue to protect Konoha. Moreover, he will never forgive the 3 people in the upper echelons of Konoha, especially Danzo. Similarly, the people of Konoha who shamelessly enjoy peace at the cost of Itachi's life are equally guilty. Obito continued to ask Sasuke at that time, "You want to eliminate more than just the people in Konoha's upper echelons?" Sasuke continued with a gloomy face. He wants to take revenge on the entire Konoha village, on the people who tortured his poor brother, and the entire so-called village. Because those people who looked at the Uchiha clan with tinted glasses led to the end of the father and son killing each other, and the brothers killing each other. Even the Konoha upper echelons who forced Itachi into a desperate situation and killed him in the end. And the guys in Konoha who admired the Senju. They are all garbage among garbage. All of them are the objects of his revenge. Don't even think about running away. Thinking about what Sasuke said, Obito woke up from his memories. Looking at Sasuke's back as he left, Obito couldn't help but sigh that when people experience love, they also bear the risk of hatred. Thinking about Sasuke's purpose, Obito shouted to Sasuke who was leaving, "Sasuke." Sasuke stopped and looked back indifferently. Obito said, "Danzo's right eye was taken out by Naruto, and his right arm was also cut off by Naruto. Now his strength has been greatly reduced. If you go to Konoha after your injury is healed, you can operate on him." Sasuke was a little shocked. Naruto. Thinking about the last time they fought, when Naruto left, he seemed to say that he helped him to deal with Danzo and let him have time to harvest. I didn't understand what he meant at the time, but now I think about it, Did Naruto kill Danzo and betray Konoha for himself? For some reason, Sasuke's heart suddenly became a little confused. This guy, humph. Sasuke turned around, took Jugo, and continued to walk forward, disappearing into the forest. "Are we going to start, junior brother?" Naruto held the scroll, looked at Red Bean lying on the floor in front of him, and nodded. Seeing this, Konan stepped forward to help Red Bean up, took off her coat, and revealed the curse mark on her neck. Nagato stayed on the launcher, looking at the curse mark, thinking about what Naruto was going to do, and sighed. "I originally thought that only the 6 paths of reincarnation could revive people. I didn't expect that Orochimaru could be resurrected in this way." Naruto smiled and said, "After all, he is the first scientist in the ninja world. It's not surprising that this kind of thing happened to him." After that, Naruto stepped forward, pulled the scroll open, and then stuck it on the curse mark on the back of Red Bean's neck. Sasuke once said that Orochimaru's curse seal is equivalent to a backup of a life form. Although the curse seal is not unique, it is a pointer that can point to Orochimaru's soul. If you want to revive Orochimaru, you must find the key, unlock the window of the curse seal, and let Orochimaru's only soul come out. As long as Orochimaru's soul can come out, with his own excellent regeneration ability, the power left by the curse seal body can allow him to perfectly restore himself. Jugo is the key, because the curse seal originated from Jugo, but it was later obtained by Orochimaru and some modifications were made. Naruto stood behind Red Bean and began to make a seal. "Remove the evil seal." As he said, Naruto cast a spell and pressed it on Red Bean's neck. On the scroll, Jugo's curse seal fairy chakra continued to flow into the curse seal on the back of Red Bean's neck. Then, a white light flashed, and Naruto slowly raised his hand. A big white snake came out from the curse seal of Red Bean, and the whole snake head and body became bigger and bigger. Then, the snake opened its mouth, and Orochimaru came out from it, followed by a pile of mucus. Naruto frowned and said, "I say, Uncle Snake, can you improve your way of appearance in the future? It's disgusting." Orochimaru stood up, turned around and looked at Naruto, and a hoarse voice came slowly, "Oh, it really surprised me. I really didn't expect that the person who resurrected me was you, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto responded, "I didn't expect that one day I would wear this dress and resurrect you." Orochimaru licked his tongue. "There's no way, the world is so unpredictable. It seems that your win seems to have something happened on the road of pursuit. As expected of a man who pursues the truth in the ninja world, he speaks so artistically." Naruto looked at Orochimaru and said, "I did encounter some problems. So, I resurrected you, Uncle Orochimaru, just to use your power to help me build a new ninja world." "A new ninja world?" Orochimaru said playfully. Naruto nodded and said, "Yes." Orochimaru sneered, "Sorry, I'm not interested." Konan stepped forward and looked at Orochimaru and said, "Orochimaru, don't be ungrateful. Naruto can resurrect you, but he can also put you back." As soon as Konan finished speaking, Nagato controlled the 6 paths of pain to come to Naruto. The intention was obvious. If you don't cooperate, you will be saved on the spot. Naruto raised his hand and said, "Don't do that. Force is useless against someone like Orochimaru. Besides, the person who can kill Orochimaru hasn't appeared yet. Even I can't do it now." Orochimaru was a little surprised and said, "I didn't expect that, Naruto. You could make Konan and Nagato of Akatsuki work for you. Especially, Nagato's." As he said that, Orochimaru's golden eyes were fixed on Nagato's samsara eye, as if he was looking at an incredible treasure. Naruto came to Orochimaru and said, "They are all my companions now. I believe that you, Uncle Snake, can also become my companion, join us and become a member of the 10 organization." Orochimaru sneered, "Why do you want me to join?" Naruto said sincerely, "Because I know what you want. Uncle Snake, you are a person who exists to unravel the truth of the world. For you, finding the true meaning of life is much happier than those Hokage in villages." Orochimaru sneered, pulled up his hair and said, "You are right about this." Naruto walked around Orochimaru and continued, "I also understand that you like freedom and don't like to serve any village, organization, or someone. Your hobby is to keep doing research to discover the mysteries or truths about life in the world, as well as some interesting things." Quote. Hearing Naruto introduce himself so well, Orochimaru was a little surprised. "Don't worry, I will not be a constraint on you after joining 10. On the contrary, I will strongly support your research, and I will study with you, because there are some powers that I don't understand very well." Orochimaru said with an, "Oh, what kind of power makes you, Naruto, so fascinated?" Naruto looked at Orochimaru and said seriously, "There are many, such as how to make the Sharingan into the Samsara Eye, what exactly is the power of the Six-Path Sage, if the 10-tailed beasts are gathered together, can the legendary 10 tails be summoned, and so on. There are many mysteries that I want to explore." Quote. Naruto said while looking at Orochimaru. Sure enough, when hearing what Naruto said, Orochimaru's eyes radiated a strange light. That light revealed a long-lost excitement. "Ah, Naruto, you really surprised me. I originally thought that I was the only one in the world who would pursue such a crazy truth. I never thought that you are more advanced than me." Quote. Orochimaru licked his tongue excitedly. Compared to his own research, the topic Naruto proposed now obviously surpassed him and ran ahead of him. Because the power of the Six-Path Sage and how to turn the Sharingan into the Samsara Eye involved two forces: the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan. Orochimaru also discovered it after studying for a long time. So, after losing hope of taking over Sasuke's body, he still paid close attention to Sasuke. He wanted to see where his Uchiha clan's wind would blow to. At the same time, he also understood that the power of the Senju clan was still in the dark and had not appeared, so he had no way to study it. It was only later that he was sure that Naruto was that wind, the other wind he had been looking for. Now, Naruto directly proposed these topics before Orochimaru, which made Orochimaru very excited. Found a confidant. Naruto smiled and said, "How about it, Uncle Snake, are you interested in helping me study together?" Quote. Conan stepped forward in time, looked at Orochimaru and said, "As long as you join us, you can not only study with Naruto, but we can also provide you with a research site and shelter." Orochimaru thought about it, and finally nodded. "I agree to join, but it's just a partnership." Naruto nodded happily and said, "No problem, then from today on, you are the chief scientist of my TN organization." The two of them were caught. "What did you say?" The killer bee was captured. Union, the Raikage's office. The Raikage twisted the 1,000-pound barbell with his left hand, moving it up and down, while listening angrily to the report of his subordinates who were half kneeling on the ground under the desk. "Yes, there are also people from the Uchiha clan of Konoha among the attackers. Now, the seniors are tracking them." Seeing this, Mabui, the secretary of the Raikage's office, looked at the Raikage and asked, "Lord Raikage, what should we do now?" The Raikage kept clenching his right hand and said angrily, "I will never forgive Shao." As he said that, he punched the desk in front of him in half with his right fist. Raikage looked up and said affectionately, "My Odudo, wait for me. Here, Obito has brought the killer bee hunted by Sasuke to the place of the Outer Path demon statue, ready to seal the 8 tails in." Kisame looked at the 8 tails lying on the ground and said with some emotion, "I didn't expect that Sasuke really caught the 8 tails." Obito smiled and said, "I said that guy, there is no problem." Black Zetsu said, "Then we will be busy for a few days." White Zetsu sighed, "Alas, I can't see the sun for another 7 or 8 days. Because the Akatsuki organization has fallen apart recently, only 3 people can be gathered to seal it, so it takes more time." Obito made a seal and said, "Let's start." So, the three of them began to make seals. The seal covered Killer Bee, and Killer Bee began to emit the tailed beast's chakra, and a humming sound came out of his mouth. This was a common appearance of the tailed beast leaving the Jinchuriki. Obito, Kisame, and Black and White Zetsu were not surprised. Suddenly, Killer Bee, which had been lifted into the air, disappeared with a bang, and was replaced by a mass of things. With a clatter, it fell to the ground. Kisame frowned and said, "Sasuke, won't you be fooled by someone?" White Zetsu saw the object clearly and couldn't help laughing. "Ha ha ha ha, it's an octopus leg. Ha 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 ha." Obito. Black Zetsu looked at Obito's expression, as if he had eaten shit, and immediately said angrily, "Stop laughing." White Zetsu quickly held back his laughter. Obito's face hurt. He was still praising Sasuke in the last second, but in this second, he was slapped in the face. Obviously, the appearance of the octopus legs means that the Eight Tails was not captured successfully at all, and it should be that the clone escaped. It seems that the Eight Tails was indeed underestimated. Cut off the tail to survive. It should be the Eight Tails' life-saving technique, otherwise it would not be possible to deceive Sasuke, who has the Mangekyo Sharingan. Kisame. Kisame looked at Obito, and Obito looked at him and said, "You have to run a trip." Kisame snorted coldly and said, "Really, I have to run a trip again?" As he said, Kisame carried Samahata on his back and walked out the door, muttering to himself as he walked, "Mr. Itachi, it's a pity that you are no longer here. Now I can only carry out the mission alone." The Land of Fire, outside Konoha village, the Uzumaki clan's Neiman Hall. Naruto Flying Thunder God brought Orochimaru and Konan here. In order to guard against Obito's return, Nagato stayed at the base camp, and Naruto also left a shadow clone beside him. If Obito used some secret means to forcibly take away the Samsara Eye, the shadow clone Naruto could take Nagato away directly. Orochimaru looked at the Nanman Hall in front of him and said in surprise, "Naruto-kun, come here." Naruto looked at Orochimaru with a smile and said, "Of course I will accompany you to get the mask of the Uzumaki clan and the God of Death together." Orochimaru said, "Oh, it's not time yet. I mainly want to help you get your hands back, so that you can help me do things better and study with me." Orochimaru was a little moved. He didn't expect that Naruto would think so much about himself. "Aren't you afraid that I will recover my hands, become stronger, and then leave?" Naruto shook his head and said, "I said, Uncle Snake, I know you. In this world, no one can make you surrender except the truth. Moreover, you and I are originally a cooperative relationship. If you are really determined to leave, I will never stop you." After that, Naruto walked into the Nanman Hall. Orochimaru licked his lips, looked at Konan and said, "I finally understand why you and Nagato are willing to follow Naruto-kun. He is indeed very charismatic, much better than that Madara." Konan smiled and followed Naruto. Orochimaru also followed with a smile. Looking around, Orochimaru said nostalgically, "This place is still the same, tattered, and has not changed at all. Naruto-kun, you can come here directly, I guess you have made a mark before." Naruto nodded and said, "Yes, after sending the master back to the village, I came here and made a mark." Orochimaru looked at Naruto with some appreciation. It is obvious that Naruto does things with a plan and arrangement. This shows that what Naruto said about building a new ninja world is not a joke, nor is it a sudden impulse of a child, but is really planned. From this point of view, Sasuke and Naruto are no longer people of the same level. Now Naruto can at least be compared with that masked Madara. Naruto looked at the rows of masks on the wall, stepped aside, and made a gesture of invitation, saying, "Uncle Snake, thank you for your help." Orochimaru smiled slightly and came to the mask wall. A long snake emerged from Orochimaru's left sleeve, and then the snake head spit out the core, searching among the many masks one by one. After a while, Orochimaru found it. Xiaonan asked in confusion, "Why do you have to come here to find this mask?" Naruto explained, "Because back then, the third grandfather used the Shikigami seal to seal the hands of Orochimaru and keep them in the belly of the Grim Reaper. This mask is the Grim Reaper mask of the Uzumaki clan. Wearing it, you can temporarily become the host of the Grim Reaper, and then cut open the belly to release the souls of the hands swallowed by the Grim Reaper." Orochimaru looked at the mask, then looked at Naruto and smiled. "Naruto-kun has really studied it thoroughly." Naruto waved his hand and said, Thank you for the compliment. Although I know this technique, I dare not use it. It's only you, Orochimaru. If it were anyone else, who would dare to take advantage of the Grim Reaper? Orochimaru smiled, and Naruto's words were very obvious. He obviously knew the secret of his own substitution technique. Since Naruto-kun knows so much, he should understand that impure world reincarnation requires a living being. After I sacrifice myself, if there is no suitable one. Naruto smiled and said, this is easy, don't worry, wait for me for a while. After saying that, Naruto flew away directly. 7 or 8 minutes later, Naruto came back, holding a sealed white zetsu in his hand. There were too many white zetsu like this around Konoha village, and he could catch one at a time. The hidden treasures of the rain are still alive. The hidden rain village. On the high platform, inside the tower. Nagato looked at the group of people who came back and said, it's only been half a day, and they're back. It seems that the journey was smooth. Orochimaru joked, Naruto-kun has a good plan, and with the flying thunder god, it's naturally fast. Konan habitually walked to Nagato's side to wait. Naruto untied the shadow clone, and then was a little surprised to find that the shadow clone talked a lot with Nagato. Including what Jiraiya was like in the village and how to train Naruto. Similarly, Naruto also asked Nagato about some things about how he met Jiraiya, and Nagato also recalled seriously and told Naruto. There are many things that Naruto in his previous life had never heard of. Naruto looked at Nagato and smiled slightly, and Nagato also smiled back. Koto Amatsukami is really a magical technique. After suppressing the original crazy ideas, people began to return to their ultimate heart. It seems that Nagato is still the same Nagato. Like the Nagato in his previous life, his heart still longs for peace and a world of mutual understanding. He still recognizes Jiraiya and still wants to accompany his master as a disciple. Thinking of this, Naruto became more determined in his thoughts. Uncle Snake, it's your turn to perform the great god dance. As he said this, Naruto moved away from Orochimaru to give him space to perform. Orochimaru rolled his eyes at Naruto, then a long snake appeared in his left sleeve, and he took out the death mask from his waist and put it on his face. Suddenly, Orochimaru began to sway, making a whimpering sound, ah ah. Then, Orochimaru opened his hands, and the whole person appeared in a big word. With a buzzing sound, a huge figure of the god of death, wearing white clothes, long white hair, with pointed red horns on his head, golden pupils, a mouth full of black fangs, biting a dagger, appeared behind Orochimaru. As soon as the god of death appeared, the temperature of the whole scene dropped instantly. Konan frowned a little and hid behind Nagato. As a girl, she didn't like this atmosphere very much. Nagato, on the other hand, looked at the god of death with great curiosity, and murmured, is this the god of death? I wonder if Yahiko. Naruto glanced at Nagato and knew what he was thinking. He smiled and said, Nagato. Don't be anxious, trust me, take your time. Nagato smiled and nodded, with some expectation in his heart. It seems that Naruto-kun has similar ideas. The Grim Reaper raised his left hand, grasped the dagger bitten in his mouth, and then cut open his stomach. Suddenly, the swallowed soul emerged. At the same time, Orochimaru groaned, and a scratch appeared on his stomach out of thin air, and blood gushed out. Of the 5 souls released, 1 soul seemed to be summoned, flying in the air for a while, and then quickly returned to Orochimaru's hands. Orochimaru said happily, my hands are back. Seeing that his goal was achieved, Naruto looked at the remaining 4 souls, that is, Konoha F4, first generation, second generation, third generation, and my father, 4th generation. Forgive my father, it's not the time for us to meet now. As he said, Naruto took out the scroll he had prepared long ago and made a seal. Spiritual seal. This is a sealing technique specifically for sealing souls. In his previous life, Naruto, as a Hokage, practiced a lot with the Book of Forbidden Techniques after losing the 9 tails. This forbidden book records many sealing techniques of the Uzumaki clan. As he spoke, Naruto performed a ninjutsu, and 4 chakra grabbers emerged from the scroll, grabbing the 4 souls at once. Yoshi, seal, Naruto shouted, and then the 4 chakra grabbers directly dragged the souls of the previous Hokage into the scroll, and with a whoosh, the seal was completed. Naruto rolled up the scroll, put it on the seal, put it away, and waited for the right time to take it out. Orochimaru took off his mask, covered his stomach, and shouted in pain, "Naruto-kun." Seeing Orochimaru like this, Naruto quickly walked to the white Zetsu next to him, unsealed it, and then opened white Zetsu's mouth, shouting, "Uncle Snake, come on." Seeing this, Orochimaru opened his mouth, and suddenly, a long snake with a human face and a snake body gushed out of Orochimaru's mouth, then flew in the air, and then rushed directly into Naruto's open mouth of white Zetsu. Naruto stood up, and the white Zetsu lying on the ground slowly began to change, and soon, it turned into the appearance of Orochimaru. Nagato was stunned. He was also from the Uzumaki clan, and he had some knowledge of sealing techniques. To unseal the Shiki, the caster had to be sacrificed. It was the most classic one-for-one sealing technique. But this Orochimaru was too awesome, he actually got stuck with the god of death. Naruto hurriedly helped Orochimaru up and said with a smile, "Uncle Snake, you've worked hard. Congratulations, you have both hands back, and your strength has greatly increased." Orochimaru was indeed very happy. After all, sometimes it was really painful to have no hands, and even the most basic hand-to-hand combat was impossible. "Tell me, Naruto-kun, what do you need me to do next?" Naruto nodded, looked at Orochimaru and said, "No hurry, before I let you help me, I have to solve some things myself." Orochimaru said thoughtfully. Naruto's arrangement of one ring after another made him more and more excited. This windmill was really a surprise. The return of Orochimaru's hands is absolutely good news for Naruto. Because he is not only the first scientist and biologist in the ninja world, but also a good surgeon. This can be clearly seen from the excellent student he trained, Kabuto. However, before Naruto accepts the change, he has to meet two important people. Naruto doesn't want them to see his different appearance. At least, in this life, Naruto wants to show his original appearance for the first impression. "Sister Xiaonan, is there any secret place in the Hidden Rain Village, that is, a place with a relatively solid surrounding and suitable for training?" Xiaonan frowned and said, "You mean, something like a secret room for training, right?" Naruto nodded. Nagato said, "Yes, it's in Yuyan, under the tower. It was built by Hanzo before. The site is very large. I was there when I first made and trained Pain." Naruto smiled, "That's great. It just so happens that you are here too, Uncle Snake. Help me protect the law, and add another barrier around me, so that it will be safer." Orochimaru was surprised and said, "Naruto-kun, you are going to? It's not enough to build a solid secret room, but to add another barrier outside. This is obviously a protective measure for fear that his destructive power is too amazing. If you want to practice by yourself, you definitely don't need to do this." Looking at Naruto, under what circumstances can he have such destructive power? Thinking about Naruto saying that he was going to meet someone, Orochimaru frowned slightly, he had already guessed it. Nine-tailed fox. It seems that Naruto has already got the seal key of the nine-tailed fox, otherwise, he would not be so confident. Nagato looked at Konan and said, "Take Naruto and Orochimaru down, I'll stay up there to prevent any other accidents." Konan nodded. Naruto looked at Nagato and said, "Thank you for your hard work, senior brother." After walking down a long underground staircase, they finally arrived at the secret room. Konan performed the origami technique, and suddenly more than a dozen paper butterflies appeared in front of her, and then flew out. Then Konan formed a seal again, and the paper spontaneously ignited. Bang bang bang. Balls of flames were ignited, and the entire secret room suddenly became bright. It turned out that the paper that Sister Konan had ignited fell into the lighting brazier on the wall of the secret room, igniting the fuel inside. At this time, Naruto could see the full picture of the secret room. The entire underground secret room was like a bowl turned upside down on the ground, and the area was about the size of a football field. The ground was all that kind of extremely hard marble, piece by piece, paved on the ground tightly. If you look closely, you can still see some swords and sabers, which should be the traces left by the previous training. The whole wall is made of hard granite. Sister Xiaonan said that the thickness of the wall is at least 50 centimeters thick. It can be seen how much effort Hanzo, the former demigod man, put into building this place. Xiaonan looked at Naruto and said, "This was once the place where Hanzo trained his secret army. Naruto, you can rest assured about the hardness. It can withstand ordinary destructive ninjutsu. Naruto looked around and nodded with satisfaction. Then, Naruto came to the center of the secret room and looked at Orochimaru and said, "Uncle Snake, I'm in trouble." Orochimaru nodded and performed the shadow clone technique, splitting 3 shadow clones into a quadrilateral, surrounding Naruto in the center. Then he began to seal and cast the spell. 4 purple flame formation. A purple barrier rose. Konan was very surprised. With such a secret room and such a barrier, what was Naruto going to do? Naruto nodded to Orochimaru, then sat cross-legged on the spot and closed his eyes. Orochimaru looked at Naruto, then said to Konan, "If Naruto goes berserk later and I can't resist him, you should go up to find Nagato and let all the 6 paths of pain come down." Konan was surprised and said, "Is it that serious?" "Naruto is." Orochimaru frowned, stared at Naruto with a serious expression and said, "He is going to find something more terrible than the god of death. The place where the 9 tails is sealed." Naruto sank into his thoughts and came to this familiar sewer. "Hey, Kurama, how are you? I haven't seen you for a few days. Did you miss me?" Naruto walked over and greeted the 9 tails enthusiastically. The 9 tails lay inside the sealed door, raised one eyelid, glanced at Naruto, and then, after closing it, he snorted and said, "I'm not that familiar with you, so there's no need to be so enthusiastic." Naruto was immediately unhappy when he saw that the 9 tail was still so arrogant, and teased, "I said you have to change your arrogant temper, otherwise I'll treat you to meatballs." The 9 tail opened his eyes, stood up, and gritted his teeth and said, "You humans are all the same." If Naruto had discussed it properly, there would have been room for discussion. After all, the 9 tail had accepted the fact that Naruto had traveled from the future. However, the current 9 tail disagreed with Naruto's statement that the future 9 tail would be honest with him. Why? Because it's the 9 tail, how could it fall in love with someone it hates? Please give it a reason. The 9 tails' hatred is all human, filled with the power of the tailed beasts. Control. 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 Whether it's the hated Uchiha Madara, or Uzumaki Mito, Uzumaki Kushina. To it was all indifferent control and sealing. Oh, yes, especially that guy called Senju Hashirama. 1,000 real hands, plus a Buddha on top, a Buddha several hundred meters high. He grabbed himself with one hand, like a kitten. Thinking of this, the 9 tails felt wronged and wanted to cry. That shameless Senju Hashirama, with a serious expression on his face, said that his power was too strong and he had to seal himself. It was the other way around. I didn't even start to resist, and I was easily controlled. After that, I was forced to use a wooden man with a seal on his hand and stuck it on my forehead, forcing me to shut down and go to sleep. There was no justice at all, and I didn't even ask if I was willing. Thinking of this, the 9 tails was so angry that he looked at Naruto with a bad face. Naruto didn't have so much time to listen to the 9 tails this time. He had to draw out the chakra buried in his body anyway. It was better for the 9 tails to be angry. Otherwise, his heart would not be lost, and his parents' chakra would not come out. As he said that, Naruto floated directly to the sealed door and tore off the seal with the words on it. The 9 tails bared his teeth and looked at Naruto and said, "What are you going to do?" He lifted his shirt and bit it with his mouth, then rolled up the sleeve of his left hand with his right hand, gathered the chakra of his 5 fingers, and the key to the 8 diagram seal suddenly appeared in his hand. Naruto smiled and said, "Now my mouth is not empty, isn't it obvious?" Then, he pressed it directly on his stomach and turned it with a click. Suddenly, the lock seal on the sealed door began to turn with a click. The 8 diagram seal, unlocked. The 9 tails roared and slapped the door open with one palm. "Naruto, you are playing with fire." The 9 tails roared, and its 9 tails flew. Naruto was in midair, and was directly blown away by the air waves raised by the 9 tails. Outside, Naruto, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, began to have chakra bubbles on his body instantly. Starting from the sealed navel, 1, 2, 3. More and more, until the yellow 9 tails chakra covered Naruto's entire body. Konan was shocked and said, "This chakra, this feeling, this is..." Orochimaru was on guard and said carefully, "This is the 9 tails chakra, but this is only the first state. The 9 tails chakra overflows, forming the 9 tails chakra coat. Orochimaru has dealt with Naruto several times. One time, because of talking about Sasuke, Naruto directly exploded. At that time, Naruto directly turned into the 9 tails, and several tails were exposed, which was much more terrifying than now. I still remember that at that time, when Naruto was in a rampage state, a tailed beast bullet, if he hadn't used the triple Rashomon to block it in time, he might have been offline long ago. I hope Naruto can control it and don't repeat the scene at that time. Orochimaru just thought in his heart. Suddenly, black chakra began to flow out of Naruto's belly button, and then a tail began to appear. Orochimaru's heart skipped a beat. This phenomenon means that the consciousness of the 9 tails has overflowed. What you worry about will come true. His barrier can only withstand Naruto's 4 tails, most of the time it can't withstand half a tail. Konan, if Naruto has 4 tails later, you go up and tell Nagato to come down. Seeing Orochimaru's expression so nervous, Konan understood the importance of the matter and nodded. The sealed place. Naruto was blown far away by the air wave. Before he could stand firmly in the air, the 9-tailed tail swept over. Kurama, Naruto exclaimed and quickly blocked with both hands. Just when the 9-tailed tail was about to sweep Naruto, a yellow flash appeared. With a buzz, Naruto disappeared on the spot. The next second, the 4th generation Hokage Minato Namikaze pulled Naruto and appeared not far from the 9-tailed tail. The 9 tails looked at the man in front of him, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he trembled with anger, saying, "You are the 4th Hokage." The 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze looked at the 9 tails in front of him, and the seal was completely gone. He said in disbelief, "It's impossible. Once the seal of the 8th tail is unlocked, I will appear in Naruto's consciousness. But now, in this situation, how can all the seals be unlocked?" Minato was very panicked, and his whole attention was on the 9 tails. He remembered that he had done a lot of work on the seal in advance. Naruto patted his father, pointed at himself, and said with a smile, "It's me, Dad, I opened all the seals." Minato exclaimed, "What, you mean, you took the initiative to open this sealed door?" Naruto nodded proudly. "Where did you get the key?" Naruto replied, "I found Jiraiya teacher and tricked him here." Minato widened his eyes in shock, with an expression of, "You were really a good son of your father." The 9 tails snorted coldly, looked at the father and son in front of him, and roared, "4th generation, you didn't expect it, you spent so much effort to seal me, but in the end, your son released me in one breath. Humph, next, watch how I occupy your son's body consciousness and regain my freedom." As he said, the 9 tails chakra surged wildly, and outside, half of Naruto's body was wrapped in the black 9 tails chakra, and all 3 tails appeared. Namikaze Minato exclaimed, "Oops." Naruto snorted coldly and said, "How shameless. 9 tails, you underestimate your brother too much." The 9 tails roared, "Bakayar, stop being shameless, who is your brother?" Naruto didn't care and logged out in one step. Minato exclaimed behind him, "Naruto, don't be impulsive, let me do it. If you come, then how can I, as a son, shock you?" As he spoke, an orange mark appeared at the corner of Naruto's eye, and the Sage Mode was activated, and he formed a seal. Multiple shadow clone technique. Bang 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 bang. Dozens of Naruto appeared, and then all jumped up. Then, Naruto rolled his balls. Sage technique. Super large Rasengan multi-ball. One ball after another, thrown directly at the face of the 9 tails. The 9 tails of the 9 tails formed a shield to resist Naruto's crazy attack. Minato Namikaze was very shocked. Surprised, Naruto not only learned the Rasengan, but also learned the fairy method of teacher Jiraiya, and combined them so cleverly. While he was shocked, he noticed that not far away, there were 2 Naruto shadow clones rolling balls there. Is it the Rasengan? No, it's the Rasengan's form change technique. Naruto, this kid, can actually improve his ninjutsu by himself. While Minato Namikaze was shocked, the battle on Naruto's side had entered a white-hot stage. The big ball Rasengan directly knocked the 9 tails down. The yellow water waves stirred up by the battle were more than 10 meters high. The 9 tails was furious. "For many years, I haven't been beaten like this. Naruto, you underestimate me too much." "Ah!" The 9 tails roared, and the 9 tails bounced off instantly, directly bouncing away the shadow clones and the big ball Rasengan that had not yet attacked, and disappeared. Here, Naruto's other ninjutsu is ready. Looking at the furious Nine Tails, he sighed. Nine Tails, it's still as brave as it was back then. After all, in the Fourth Ninja World War in the previous life, Naruto and the Nine Tails officially transformed into tailed beasts for the first time. The Nine Tails raised its golden tail and directly bounced off the tailed beast balls of the eight-tailed beasts. Kurama, I'm going to attack. Naruto rushed forward with the wind-style spiral shuriken in hand. Another one, Kurama. Buzz buzz buzz. With a high-speed rotating roar, the wind-style spiral shuriken flew in Naruto's hand. The Nine Tails gritted its teeth and said, "Don't underestimate me." As it spoke, the Nine Tails attacked one after another. Naruto snorted coldly, then shot a kunai, and when it flew past the Nine Tails, the next tail of the Nine Tails attacked, and Naruto immediately moved away. With a buzz, Naruto disappeared. The fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze widened his eyes. That's it. The next second, Naruto appeared behind the Nine Tails, holding a kunai in his hand, turned around, and shouted. Wind style, Rasenshuriken. With a chirp, the Rasenshuriken hit directly, and then exploded into a huge wind-style cutting ball, pressing the Nine Tails to rotate. The Nine Tails' entire face was almost flattened, and he was surprised. This power, when did this kid have such a strong power? Naruto held the wind style with his hand, pressed forward, and shouted angrily, "Get in!" With a bang, the wind style ball exploded and turned directly into a wind style sword, which blasted the Nine Tails back rapidly and hit the depths of the sealed gate. At the same time, the situation of the original Naruto sitting cross-legged outside also improved slightly. The Nine Tails chakra was repelled by Naruto, and the original three tails became one tail, and the black chakra was also fading. Seeing this, Orochimaru felt more at ease and smiled knowingly. It seems that Naruto-kun has made some progress. The nine-tailed fox drew a long waterway on the water, and its huge body stirred up a huge wave. The whole body was lying on its back, and even its tail was blown apart by the spiral wind escape. 4 on the left and 5 on the right. Minato Namikaze swallowed his saliva and looked at Naruto in front of him, very shocked. He even learned his own Flying Thunder God. Moreover, the previous move. Receive, transform, and release. It was a pretty beautiful fight. It was a bit like his style back then, worthy of being his father's good son. For a moment, Minato had forgotten about Naruto's reckless decision to unseal the Nine Tails. Yoshi. Next, it's tug of war. As he spoke, Naruto touched his fists and palms together, using his own chakra. Suddenly, a shadow of himself appeared behind Naruto, which was condensed from his own chakra. The Nine Tails was incooperative, and he had to use the Nine Tails chakra again. What should he do? He could only do the same as in his previous life, beat the Nine Tails first, snatch it away, and then slowly coax it later. After all, Naruto had coaxed it this way in his previous life. Naruto came to one of the Nine Tails' tails, and the shadow Naruto behind him stepped forward and grabbed the Nine Tails' tail with both hands. Naruto stepped back, and suddenly, a large piece of blue Nine Tails chakra was pulled out by the shadow Naruto. Minato Namikaze was shocked. He finally understood why Naruto wanted to open all the seals. After all this time, his son wants to strip the Nine Tails chakra for his own use. This kid is great. The progress is faster than he expected, and even his original intention is not affected. He directly practices the Nine Tails chakra mode. Minato came to Naruto, looked at the Nine Tails, and said carefully, "Naruto. While the Nine Tails is weak now, pull its chakra out." Naruto gritted his teeth and nodded, "I know." Minato was also anxious, because when he was alive, he also heard his wife Kushina talk about the use of the Nine Tails chakra. Kushina said that seizing the Nine Tails chakra is like tug of war. Whoever wins can use the Nine Tails chakra. At that time, he only understood half of it, but now seeing Naruto like this, he completely understood it. "Come on, Naruto." Namikaze Minato cheered his son on the side. The Nine Tails stood up tremblingly, looking at Naruto, who was actually pulling his own chakra. In addition to being angry, he was also somewhat disdainful, so. While Naruto was pulling the Nine Tails chakra, the Nine Tails was releasing its hatred to Naruto. The red and black Nine-Tails chakra seeped out from the Nine-Tails tail, and spread rapidly along the blue chakra strip pulled out by the Phantom Naruto, like a snake, directly infecting the Phantom Naruto until it was completely wrapped. Then, a long voice of hatred came to Naruto's ears. I hate it, I'm in so much pain, I want to kill you. Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly, but he did not resist, and chose to let go of his mind and let this hatred come in. So, he instantly felt that he had entered a hell, with countless floating evil ghost heads everywhere, whimpering and shouting in his ears. If there was no such guy, it would be great if there was no such guy. Naruto covered his head and panted, Nine-Tailed Fox. Chakra connection belt. The Phantom Naruto slowly flowed out of Naruto's body, dragged by the evil chakra of the Nine-Tailed Fox, getting farther and farther away from Naruto's body. Minato Namikaze was shocked and shouted on the side, it's bad. Naruto, cheer up, don't give up. Seeing this, the Nine-Tailed Fox sneered, fortunately, I didn't completely believe in you, In the future, you can't even control my power, what are you talking to me about? Minato looked at the Nine-Tailed Fox in shock. From its words, Minato learned that Naruto must have talked to the Nine-Tailed Fox before, and the content of the conversation seemed to be some extraordinary things. Naruto half crouched on the ground. Because of the interference of the Nine-Tailed Fox, the fairy chakra was unstable, and the orange fairy symbol at the corner of his eye faded. He snorted coldly, looked at the Nine Tails and said, don't be too proud too soon, Kurama. Minato half knelt beside Naruto and asked with concern, are you okay, Naruto? Otherwise, I'll close the seal. Naruto gritted his teeth and waved his hand, no. Dad, don't worry about me, really. Believe me, when it reaches a certain level, Mom will come out. Namikaze Minato raised his body in surprise and looked at Naruto in front of him. He seemed to have thought of something. Then, he asked in shock, Naruto, you didn't do it on purpose. Naruto raised his head with difficulty, his forehead was full of sweat, and smiled, ah. Otherwise, how can my mother's chakra come out? Kyuubi looked at the two father and son mumbling something there, so he said, don't waste your energy, Naruto, 4th generation. You are just a small part of my hatred. In my chakra, there is endless hatred for a long time. Even this young boy can bear it. Naruto gasped and let the evil chakra of the Nine Tails come in. In a trance, he seemed to have returned to his childhood. That's it, disappear. No one will agree with you. Young Naruto stood there alone, and a group of indifferent people stood in front of young Naruto and kept muttering. Disappear, 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 disappear. Naruto covered his head and roared, shut up. Minato Namikaze was shocked and shouted anxiously, Naruto, hang on. As a result, one of Naruto's eyes had completely turned evil and completely red. Disappear, all of you disappear. Because he completely let go of his mind, Naruto was completely affected and roared loudly. At this time, a gentle voice sounded. No, just stay here. Naruto's frown relaxed, his uneasy mood disappeared, and his eyes opened. When he saw it, he saw a gentle woman with red hair, a hairpin, and a green suspender standing in front of him. Calling his name affectionately, Naruto. Naruto saw the person in front of him clearly, and his eyes couldn't stop crying. Ha ha ha, I finally saw my mother. Kushina looked at Naruto and said happily, Naruto, yes, I am your mom. Naruto rushed into Kushina all of a sudden, and then burst into tears. Kushina was a little surprised that Naruto recognized her at a glance. Afterwards, Kushina hugged Naruto gently, slowly stroked Naruto's back, and said gently, oh, don't cry, have you suffered a lot of grievances, don't cry, don't cry. As soon as these comforting words were said, Naruto's tears were like a flood that could not be stopped at all. The only good thing in the world is a mother, and a child with a mother is like a treasure. At this moment, Naruto was in the arms of his mother Kushina, crying bitterly, as if to release all the depression in his heart. Mom, I miss you so much. Naruto hugged Kushina tightly, and Kushina gently stroked Naruto's back and comforted him in a soft voice. Since his rebirth, Naruto has been under great pressure. Not only does he have to face the misunderstanding and complaints of the people around him, but he also has to face the pressure in his heart. In fact, he is also very scared. He is afraid that even if he is reborn once, he has not really changed the result. So he has been working non-stop to gain strength and strengthen himself. Because once he stopped and let go, he would think, what would happen if he failed again this time? Whenever he thought of this, the scenes of the tragic deaths of relatives and friends in his previous life reappeared. Many times in the middle of the night, Naruto was awakened by nightmares. Now, his mother's embrace gave Naruto the deepest tenderness in his heart, making him feel particularly peaceful. Kushina hugged Naruto's shoulders with both hands, then looked at the crying Naruto, forehead against forehead, touched Naruto's face with both hands, wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes, and said distressedly, okay, don't cry, you are so big, but you still cry like a child. Naruto's tears were wiped away by Kushina, and his emotions were soothed, but he still sobbed. Kushina herself was also infected by Naruto's emotions. After all, this was the first time she saw her grown-up son, but as a mother, in front of her child, she was strong as a mother. Although the tears did not fall, they still rolled in her eyes. Kushina adjusted her mood, comforted Naruto, and said, Naruto, wait for your mother for a while. I'll make Nine Tails behave first, and then talk to you. As she spoke, Kushina's chakra stretched out. In the sealed place, Naruto, who was lying on the ground, slowly raised his body, and then roared. 7 chain heads suddenly appeared on his chest, and then flew out quickly and locked the 9 tails. Suddenly, the 9 tails was tied up and tied tightly. After the 7 chain heads locked the 9 tails, they were firmly fixed on the ground, and the 9 tails was locked and could not move. At this moment, he raised his head with difficulty, gritted his teeth and looked at Naruto and said, this chakra is Kushina's. Namikaze Minato looked at Naruto in front of him with surprise. This kid really drew out Kushina's chakra. So that's it. All this was done intentionally by Naruto. But how did this guy know that he had injected Kushina's chakra into the seal? No, I have to go in and take a look. As he said that, Namikaze Minato put his hand on Naruto, and with a whoosh, he completely sank into Naruto's body. As soon as he came in, he saw his wife and children sitting on the ground, chatting happily. Kushina was still smiling happily and said, you are the second man who praises my red hair. Naruto pretended to be surprised and said, is that so? Then the first one is. Namikaze Minato walked forward and said proudly, it's your dad. Naruto turned around in surprise and said, you can still come in here. Kushina saw Minato and jumped up happily, then flew over and threw herself into Minato's arms. Minato Namikaze gently stroked Kushina's red hair, looked at Naruto and smiled. I built the seal, and I also injected your mother's chakra. It's easy to enter your soul space. Kushina looked at Minato, and then couldn't help kissing him, and said happily, Minato, I miss you so much. Minato Namikaze glanced at Naruto and said embarrassedly, the child is still here. Naruto was on the side, with a black line on his face. Hey, you two show your affection and consider my feelings, okay? Because Minato Namikaze died in the Shiki seal, his soul is not in the Pure Land. Therefore, although Kushina died, she has not seen Minato Namikaze for many years. So, Kushina was so excited and happy to see Minato. Hearing her husband Minato remind her, Kushina stuck out her tongue at Minato, then turned to look at Naruto and saw that her son Naruto looked unhappy. Kushina stepped forward and asked with concern, what's wrong, Naruto? Naruto snorted coldly and said, Mom, you saw. I didn't even kiss me. Kushina chuckled, then approached Naruto, kissed him on the cheek, and said with a smile, okay, now mommy kisses you too, okay? Naruto shook his head and pouted, no, I want to kiss you more than daddy. Minato smiled bitterly. This kid, even your dad is jealous. Kushina smiled dotingly. Okay, mommy will kiss you again. As she said, Kushina kissed Naruto on the other cheek again. Naruto said with satisfaction, that's more or less. Namikaze Minato was very happy when he saw the scene in front of him. In an instant, there were some tears in the corners of his eyes. Kushina and Naruto's smiles made him feel so happy. If the family really lived in Konoha, it would be great. It's true that he is the Hokage, but he is also a man, a father, and a husband. It's a lie to say that he is not sad. The two of them were very happy. Naruto, do you hate your father? Kushina and Naruto, who were laughing, paused for a moment and looked at Minato at the same time. Minato said with some self-mockery, "Because of me, I sealed the nine tails in you, making you bear the fate of the nine tails Jinchuriki, losing your parents and your complete childhood." Hearing Minato's words, Kushina took Naruto's arm and stroked his body with guilt, as if she was feeling Naruto's changes over the years. The piece of flesh that fell from her son, who had been pregnant for 10 months, has grown so big in the blink of an eye. I don't know if he has eaten well in these years, if he was naughty in school, if he was bullied by classmates, how he took care of himself when he was sick, etc. Kushina had too many questions to ask, but looking at such a big child in front of her, as a mother, she didn't know where to start. In the end, all that was left was guilty love. As if she wanted to comfort Naruto, or to comfort Minato, Kushina said softly, "Naruto, in fact, your father didn't mean it, it was really at that time." "I understand," Naruto said. Minato Namikaze looked at Naruto in surprise. Naruto looked at Minato and Kushina and said, "I understand the love of my parents for me. Under the circumstances at that time, sealing the nine tails in my body was on the one hand to make me a hero of Konoha, and on the other hand to prevent the unknown masked man from causing turmoil in the future ninja world." Hearing that Naruto actually said his considerations so accurately at that time, Minato was both relieved and guilty. He was relieved that his consideration was correct and understood. He felt guilty that his child was so sensible and didn't blame him, which made him feel bad. In fact, Minato hoped that Naruto would make a big fuss with him. Naruto continued, "Besides, Dad also considered me very carefully. He not only left the seal key of the nine tails, but also added his own chakra to the seal of the 8 tails to prevent me from going berserk. Even, in order for me to master the nine tails chakra in the future, he injected Mom's chakra into the seal when sealing." I saw all of this. Looking at his parents, Naruto took a deep breath and said with tears in his eyes, "I don't regret becoming this container, because before becoming this container, I was already filled with your love." Naruto had been a Hokage, and to some extent, he understood his father's approach better than in his previous life. Kushina's tears flowed down, and she hugged Naruto all of a sudden. "Child, Daddy and Mommy are sorry for you. Woo woo woo." Kushina couldn't bear it anymore, and all the suppressed emotions and love for Naruto were vented out. Her son was so sensible. Not only did he not blame her and Minato, but he was so understanding and supportive. This made her heart full of love to compensate her son. Naruto closed his eyes, sobbed, and shed tears. Namikaze Minato wiped his tears, walked forward, and hugged Kushina and Naruto. The family of 3 only had the opportunity to hug each other in this life. After a long time, the 3 separated. Kushina wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes, took Naruto's hand and said, "Naruto, how have you been these years?" Naruto scratched his head and said, "I'm okay." Minato said, "Come on, let's sit down and have a good chat." So the family of 3 sat on the ground. Minato looked at Naruto and said, "Naruto, can you tell Dad about your childhood?" In fact, Minato wanted to know whether the people in the village treated their son as a hero. Naruto raised his eyebrows and said, "Dad, do you really want to hear it?" Kushina keenly caught Naruto's emotional changes and asked, "Yes, Naruto, tell me, Mom wants to hear it too." "Ah." Naruto frowned and looked at Kushina and Minato and said, "Actually, it's not very good. To be honest, I had a miserable childhood." Kushina frowned in surprise and said, "Miserable?" Naruto nodded and said, "Well, I remember when I was 3 or 4 years old, I lived alone and often didn't have enough to eat and was hungry." Kushina was shocked and said, "Not enough to eat? Hungry?" Minato hurriedly asked, "Didn't the 3rd generation take care of you?" Naruto said, "Grandpa Sandai has always taken care of me. Basically, my living expenses were all given by Grandpa Sandai, but I was young at that time and spent money recklessly. And after you died, Grandpa Sandai became Hokage again, so he was busy and didn't have much time to take care of me. And..." Kushina was a little angry. Seeing Naruto hesitated, she asked, "And what? Say it." Naruto was frightened by his mother's sudden domineering side. He blurted out in fear, "And, at that time, people in the village discriminated against me, called me a demon fox, and regarded me as a monster. So, basically few people were willing to play with me. Even if I bought a lot of candy to please them, no one would play with me. So, at the end of the month, I often had no money and went hungry. Quote. Kushina almost felt sick after hearing this. As a Jinchuriki, she could relate to Naruto's discrimination. When she was a child, she came to Konoha village as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. At that time, she was relatively well taken care of. After all, Lady Uzumaki Mito was the wife of the first Hokage, the sister-in-law of the second Hokage, and the master's wife of the third Hokage. Before she came, Lady Uzumaki Mito personally summoned her, comforted her, and even had a fight with the Konoha high-level officials. It's a greeting, this is very important. In this way, Kushina was bullied a lot in Konoha. Look at her son again. Naruto said it very easily, as if it was nothing, but the actual situation is probably beyond Kushina's imagination. He must be ostracized to death. Just think about it, a 3 or 4-year-old child, in order to make friends, spend money to buy candy to please others and let others play with him. How lonely it must be. Minato hurriedly asked. What about the third generation? Didn't the third generation publicize you as a heroic deed? Didn't he tell the people in the village that you were my son? Namikaze Minato was very uncomfortable. This was different from what he expected. At least, Naruto, as his son, must be treated favorably by the village and villagers. After all, he also died for the village, and Naruto can be regarded as the descendant of a martyr. Kushina said angrily. How dare he? If the taboo of the Nine-Tail is publicized, how many enemies will come to kill him? Moreover, in the eyes of Konoha's high-ranking officials, Naruto is probably just a weapon. Speaking of this, Kushina cried out. Chapter 31. Minato was a little autistic. He really didn't expect that his son would have such a miserable life in Konoha. Naruto comforted Kushina. Okay, Mom, don't cry, it's all in the past, you see I'm doing fine now. Besides, I was miserable when I was little. After graduating from the ninja school, I gained recognition from many people through my own efforts, and I also made many friends. I even became a hero of Konoha because of some things, and gained the friendship of other ninja villages. Kushina wiped her tears and looked at Naruto and said, You said it so lightly, but Mom is upset. You are grown up now and have independent abilities, which is nothing, but when I think about you being bullied when you were so young, and you didn't have your parents to support you, Thinking of this, Kushina couldn't help crying again. While crying, Kushina looked at Minato next to her, and suddenly she was so angry that she went up and slapped Minato. I told you not to sacrifice yourself, to survive, but you refused. Minato looked at Kushina with grievance and said, Wife, you can't blame me for this. I didn't expect something like this to happen later. Kushina was so angry that her hair was flying. Naruto quickly stepped aside. In his previous life, he heard from his father Minato that his mother had a nickname, Blood Red Pepper, and when she was angry, her hair would fly. Minato was so scared that he stood up and said flatteringly, Don't be angry, my wife, it's all in the past. Kushina gritted her teeth and said, It's in the past, just let your Lord Hokage say it's in the past. That old man, the third generation, I will settle accounts with him sooner or later. What a shitty Konoha Hokage village. When my Uzumaki clan was destroyed, there was not even a timely rescue. It was not because Lord Uzumaki Mito and the first and second generations were not there, people left and the tea was cold. It's not enough for me to be a Jinchuriki, my son also became a Konoha Jinchuriki, and even my husband died when he was Hokage. My family has worked hard for Konoha, and what in return, my son had such a miserable life when he was a child. He was actually ostracized by the people in the village and called a demon fox. Minato Namikaze looked at his angry wife and hurriedly she smiled and said, Maybe the third generation has his own reasons. Besides, Naruto goes to school normally, which means the village still takes care of him, but it's just that the care is not very good. Kushina said angrily, Isn't this what we should do? You and I both died for the village. As our descendant, Naruto should not enjoy the treatment of the children of martyrs. No matter how busy the third generation is, no matter how much he protects and hides Naruto's identity, can't he tell the Sarutobi clan to find a nanny to take care of him? Why not just let him run wild and give him some money? Kushina thought to herself that it was fortunate that her son was more sunny and optimistic. Otherwise, at such a young age, he was excluded by others, had no friends, and no parents or anyone to educate him. If it were someone else, he would have turned evil long ago. Kushina pointed at Minato and said, Minato, check your conscience and think about it yourself. What did I get from marrying you? My parents' home is gone and I can't help them. I gave birth to a child and it died directly. Finally, you made my son a Jinchuriki. He almost went astray and turned evil. Facing his wife's complaints, Minato Namikaze didn't dare to refute a word. Kushina sneered and said, the third generation is really a good Hokage. Minato Namikaze wanted to say a few words, but in the end, he had to admit that the third generation did something that made him feel a little dissatisfied. It was normal for Kushina to complain. Because Minato Namikaze was the fourth generation Hokage on the surface, but in fact, the third generation Hokage was still behind the scenes. Take the destruction of the Uzumaki clan as an example. Minato wanted to help with Kushina at that time, and also persuaded the Konoha high level to send troops. After all, the Uzumaki clan was an ally of Konoha. However, Konoha was also in a war period at that time. The Uzumaki clan faced the siege of the four countries. After comprehensive consideration, the third generation did not decisively send troops and chose to delay the war. In the end, the Uzumaki clan was destroyed, and only a few people escaped. And there were some things that Minato had his opinions on. For example, Orochimaru. The third generation Hokage actually had an unshakable responsibility for Orochimaru's affairs. Because Orochimaru was doing research at the time, the villagers in the surrounding villages disappeared for no reason. Minato was an elite ninja at the time. The leader of the village defense department, his subordinates reported the situation to him at the time. He investigated and found that it was related to Lord Orochimaru. Minato's subordinates in the department could find out. As the third generation of Hokage at the time, his direct subordinate, the Anbu of the Hokage, could not have been unaware of it. As a result, the third generation, on the one hand, took into account the relationship between master and apprentice, and on the other hand, it was a pity for Orochimaru's genius, so he hesitated and did not act in time. When the matter broke out directly and the third generation had to lead the team to clean up the mess in person, at the last moment, he still took into account the relationship between master and apprentice and let Orochimaru go. Teacher Jiraiya also talked about this matter with Minato in private while drinking and chatting, saying that the third generation old man should not have been soft-hearted at the time, at least he should have stopped Orochimaru and locked him up. Naruto saw his father being scolded by his mother. To be honest, he still felt a little comforted. After all, when he was a child, he really couldn't understand why he was excluded like this. He was obviously very nice to everyone, so why did everyone hate him? His mother was right. If he hadn't met Teacher Iruka, Teacher Jiraiya, and Hinata later, he would have turned evil long ago, and might even have started revenge on Konoha with Sasuke. What can I say about the third generation grandfather? There is hatred, but not much. After all, the third generation grandfather raised him up and gave him living expenses. Although he didn't take good care of him, he still had the grace of raising him. Naruto walked forward, holding his mother Kushina's hand and said, Mom, it's all over. I've let go of the past. After going through some things, I understand what my father and the third generation grandfather did. But what you said is right, Mom. The third generation grandfather is indeed incapable, but his heart is not bad. He died for the village. Minato was surprised and said, Naruto, you mean, the third generation is dead? Kushina frowned and said, it's impossible. I haven't seen him in the Pure Land. Naruto replied, the third generation grandfather was killed by Orochimaru. The Shiki seal he used was the same as my father's, so it's normal that you didn't see the third generation grandfather in the Pure Land. Namikaze Minato hurriedly asked, when did it happen? Naruto replied, when I took the Chunin exam, it was the 12th year after you, Mom and Dad, passed away. The old man is still alive, but he is still alive. The third generation is dead, Naruto has grown up, and things have changed. However, it seems like it happened yesterday, and nothing has changed. Minato Namikaze is filled with emotion, he is already a person of the old times. Naruto looked at his parents and said, the current Hokage is Tsunade. Konoha is now stable and prosperous. When Minato heard Naruto say this, he said happily, really? By the way, Jiraiya-sensei, how is he now? Naruto replied, Jiraiya-sensei has been traveling around the world these years, occasionally returning to the village, and has been with Tsunade-sensei these days. Kushina said with regret, Jiraiya-sensei is very powerful. It's a pity that he doesn't become Hokage. Minato smiled, the teacher is too casual by nature. Being Hokage is not his life goal. Kushina stared at Naruto and asked like an interrogator, Naruto, tell your mother honestly, have you followed Jiraiya-sensei and learned bad things? Naruto thought about it. Jiraiya-sensei is good in everything, but he always pesters him, asking him to use seduction techniques, transform into a beautiful woman, and find inspiration for him. This can't be told to my mother, otherwise, I will have to skin her alive. Naruto smiled guiltily. No, I followed Jiraiya and practiced. Jiraiya taught me a lot of things, such as Rasengan, summoning techniques, etc. They were all taught by Jiraiya. Minato Namikaze added with satisfaction. Naruto, I see you have also learned the fairy techniques of Myoboku Mountain, and my Flying Thunder God, which was also taught by Jiraiya. Naruto nodded guiltily. Yes, they were all taught by Jiraiya. Kushina looked at Naruto and smiled happily, really? My son is so powerful now. He even knows fairy techniques and his father's Flying Thunder God. Minato praised. You didn't see it. Just now, Naruto was fighting with the Nine Tails outside. That set of ninjutsu was very smooth. Naruto is now at least at the level of a super ninja. Kushina stroked Naruto's face and said proudly, that's right. Don't you see who gave birth to him? My son is excellent, that's for sure. Naruto was praised and scratched his head happily. Since he was a child, he has always longed for the recognition of others, so he has been working hard and even set his goal to become a Hokage. Now, getting the recognition of his parents is more gratifying than anything else for him. By the way, Naruto, I have something to ask you. Minato Namikaze looked at Naruto and asked. Naruto asked in confusion, what's wrong, Dad? Minato looked at Naruto, puzzled, just now outside, I didn't have time to ask you, you said that you tore the seal of the Nine Tails by yourself, and you seemed to know in advance that I added your mother's chakra to your seal. You even deliberately let go of your mind and let the hatred of the Nine Tails enter your heart, thus triggering your mother's chakra. I said this, right? After Minato finished speaking, Kushina looked at Naruto in disbelief and said, how is it possible? How could Naruto know this in advance? You added chakra to his sealing ceremony, and only you and I know about it. Kushina was right. Although the third generation and his Anbu guards were also present when the Nine Tails was sealed, only he and Kushina knew about some of the tricks that Minato did during the sealing ceremony. For example, when the eighth tail of the Nine Tails appears, the fourth Hokage's own chakra will appear. Another example is that Kushina's chakra is arranged to appear when Naruto's mind is out of control, in order to better master the Nine Tails chakra. But as of now, Naruto seems to know everything in advance, which makes Minato feel incredible. Naruto took a deep breath, looked at his parents and said, yes, I do know everything, and I know the detailed process, even the way to master the Nine Tails chakra and the way to master the Nine Tails beast transformation, I know it very clearly. Looking at Naruto's resolute eyes, Kushina couldn't help covering her mouth and said in surprise, how could it be? Minato frowned and looked at Naruto. His son in front of him made him feel that he couldn't see through him. Naruto took a deep breath and said, I know you must be very puzzled, and even want to ask me how I know. Minato and Kushina looked at Naruto, waiting for an explanation. Naruto smiled and said, in fact, compared to this, what I am about to tell you may be even more incredible, and you may not even want to believe it. Quote, Naruto looked into the eyes of Minato and Kushina, and said seriously, actually, I am Naruto who traveled back from the future. In the future, I have become a companion with the Nine Tails and have become a perfect Jinchuriki. Minato and Kushina looked at each other, and saw disbelief in each other's eyes. Naruto continued. According to the trajectory of the previous life, the Fourth Ninja World War will break out in the near future. The leader of the war, I say, you may not believe it, Dad, is your apprentice, Uchiha Obito. Minato was shocked and said, how is it possible? Didn't Obito die in the Battle of Kanobi Bridge? Naruto shook his head and said, No, Obito was just buried by stones. After that, he was rescued by Uchiha Madara, and then fell into the trap designed by Uchiha Madara. He witnessed Rin's death, completely blackened, and joined Uchiha Madara's Moon Eye plan. By the way, Dad, when I was born, it was Obito who attacked you and Mom and released the 9 tails. Quote. When Minato and Kushina heard the news, they both froze in their places. Minato clenched his fists and said tremblingly, how could it be? How could it be Obito? As a master, Minato was heartbroken at the moment. Obito, Rin, and Kakashi were all his disciples. He had always been optimistic about Obito and even thought that Obito could become Hokage in the future. As a result, he originally thought that the masked man who attacked him was someone like Uchiha Madara, but he didn't expect it to be his own disciple, Obito. Kushina also said in disbelief, I really didn't expect that such an optimistic child would. Minato looked at Naruto and asked seriously, what evidence do you have? Naruto thought about the experience of his father Flying Thunder God in the past when Obito finally made a seal to become a Jinchuriki in the 4th war in his previous life. Dad, you still remember that when you fought against the masked man, you left the mark of Flying Thunder God on him, right? Quote. Minato shuddered. Naruto was right. That's right. Naruto could tell such a secret accurately. It seems that what Naruto said about traveling back in time must be true. Why did Obito start the 4th Ninja World War? Kushina was aroused by Naruto's words and asked anxiously. Naruto recalled the past and said, the reason is a long story. At that time, the Kurigakure village took Rin away to attack Konoha, and implanted the 3-tailed beast in her body, thinking that if Rin returned to Konoha, the tailed beast in her body would be triggered, thus causing war. The Kurigakure Anbu deliberately let Rin go, and was just chased back and protected by Kakashi. Then, in order to prevent the village from being harmed, Rin took the initiative to die under Kakashi's Raikage, and this scene happened to be seen by Obito. So, Obito turned evil, and successfully opened the Mangekyo Sharingan and awakened the Kamui. Minato and Kushina nodded. When this happened, they were still alive. Later, Kakashi was autistic for a long time because of this incident. In order to enlighten him, Minato specially asked him to take care of Kushina secretly. The purpose is to let him feel the new life and cheer up. Naruto continued, in fact, all this was designed by Uchiha Madara. On the one hand, he wanted Obito to feel hatred and open his Mangekyo Sharingan. On the other hand, he wanted Obito to feel the hypocrisy of this world and the fragility of life, so that he would join him and realize the Moon Eye project together. Kushina asked, what is the Moon Eye project? Naruto frowned and said, how can I tell you, Mom? It's actually the biggest illusion. In Uchiha Madara's understanding, it is to use the infinite moon reading to project the Samsara Sharingan onto the surface of the moon, and use the God Tree World Advent to entangle the people who are trapped in the dream, so that everyone will fall into a beautiful dream, thus cutting off the cause and effect of this world and freeing people from distress, pain, and emptiness. Kushina was shocked and said, there is such an illusion. Minato frowned and thought, the real situation should not be like this, Naruto. Naruto nodded. He is indeed his father, and his IQ is beyond reproach. The truth is not like this. The prophecy that Uchiha Madara saw on his clan's stone tablet with his Mangekyo Sharingan was actually tampered with by someone. That person was Black Zetsu. To be more precise, he should be considered the 3rd brother of the 6-Path Sage. Kushina touched her son's face and sighed as if she was listening to a heavenly book. Naruto, what on earth did you experience in the future that even the 6-Path Sage appeared? Naruto smiled bitterly and said, it's ridiculous, Mom. Doesn't it feel like listening to a myth? Kushina nodded. Minato motioned for Naruto to continue. Naruto continued, the reason why Black Zetsu changed the stone tablet left by the 6-Path Sage was to resurrect his mother, Wei Yuyi, the mother of the 6-Path Sage. I know you are confused, Mom. What's wrong with resurrecting your own mother, right? Kushina nodded. Naruto continued, in fact, Wei Yuyi was sealed by the 6-Path Sage and his second brother Hamura, because at that time, Wei Yuyi wanted to use the sacred tree to absorb the energy of the entire planet, including humans, to make the sacred tree bloom and condense into chakra fruit. As for the purpose, I will tell you later. You just need to remember that Wei Yuyi, including the Six Paths Sage, his second brother, and the third brother Black Zetsu, are all aliens. They came to our world to seize life energy, which is also the purpose of my crossing back. Okay, let me continue. Wei Yuyi's behavior made the Six Paths Sage and his second brother Hamura very dissatisfied, because the Six Paths Sage himself created the ninja world and benefited mankind. So, he joined forces with his second brother Hamura to seal Wei Yuyi on the moon. Kushina was a little shocked and said, "So, when I was a child, the stories told by the elders in the clan were all true. The moon was really created by the Six Paths Sage, and the purpose was to seal a terrible thing." Naruto nodded and said, "The Uzumaki clan and the Senju clan are distant relatives, both of whom are the bloodline left by the Six Paths Sage. Some legends in the clan also have their sources. Besides, that Black Zetsu is actually the birth of Wei Yuyi's consciousness. He wanted to revive Wei Yuyi, so he kept looking for opportunities to stir up the relationship between the two sons of the Six Paths Sage, that is, Indra and Ashura. Because of this, Indra and Ashura continued to reincarnate. Because of the intervention of Black Zetsu, the fate of the two people was constantly entangled, until Black Zetsu met Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. Reincarnation of this life. Uchiha Madara successfully followed the instructions on the stone tablet, and firmly believed that what was said on the stone tablet was the best future for the ninja world. In fact, it was not at all. It was just a means that Black Zetsu specially modified in order to revive Wei Yuyi. Quote, Minato nodded, and seemed to understand many of the problems that he couldn't figure out when he was in power. He looked at Naruto and asked, "If I guess correctly, Uchiha Madara should have been unable to act for some reason at that time, so he looked for someone and chose Obito as his actor." Naruto praised, "Dad is indeed a genius, with excellent analytical ability." Indeed, at that time, Uchiha Madara, with the help of Black Zetsu, opened the Samsara Eye, summoned the Outer Path demon statue, and cultivated the White Zetsu creature, but unfortunately, he was too old and unable to act. So, after successfully catalyzing Obito, he took the initiative to die. On the one hand, in order to let Obito better execute the plan on his behalf, on the other hand, let Obito monitor Nagato and use the six paths of reincarnation to revive him, thus starting the Moon Eye plan. Quote, Kushina was fascinated by the story, just like listening to a myth, and asked, "What happened to you later?" Naruto said, "Later, Obito brought a large number of White Zetsu and started a war. In addition, a ninja named Kabuto, who was also a disciple of Orochimaru, used the forbidden technique, impure world reincarnation, to revive a large number of dead ninjas and joined the battle. Fortunately, the ninja world united and formed a ninja coalition to fight together and win victory after victory. When the final battle came, Uchiha Madara became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Sasuke and I were the reincarnations of Indra and Ashura in this life, and we respectively obtained the yin and yang power of the Six Paths Sage. Oh, by the way, in the end, Obito was also successfully awakened by me and helped me defeat Madara. Unfortunately, Black Zetsu later controlled Madara and summoned Hidden Light. Obito died at Hidden Light's hands to save me. Fortunately, Sasuke and I finally succeeded in sealing Hidden Light and ended the Fourth Ninja War." Quote, the old man was so angry that he was so angry. Minato Namikaze and Kushina sighed. "I never thought that so many things would happen in the future ninja world." Kushina looked at Naruto and asked, "Naruto, you said you traveled back in time, so why did you come back in the future?" When Naruto heard his mother ask this, he said with a heavy heart, "Because, the Wei clan, that's what I told you, these aliens came back here and wanted to seize the energy of this planet. I led the entire ninja world to fight, but I couldn't beat them at all. Fortunately, the Six Paths Sage left a backup plan, so that my son Boruto used the magic plow to send me back in time, thus changing the history of the entire ninja world." Kushina heard a sentence that made her very happy in this sentence, and hurriedly asked, "Naruto, you mean, in the future you have a son, ha ha ha, tell your mother quickly, who is the bride?" Namikaze Minato was also very happy. It seemed that Naruto in the future was very happy. Not only did he become a Hokage, but he also got married and had children. As a parent, there is nothing happier than watching your children grow up. Naruto scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "It's the eldest daughter of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hinata, she has liked me since she was a child, but I was slow to realize it. According to the trajectory of my previous life, I was about 20 years old when I officially confirmed my relationship with Hinata. Thinking of this, Naruto smiled happily and said, Mom, Dad, I not only have a son named Boruto, but also a daughter named Himawari, who is as beautiful as you, Mom. Kushina laughed excitedly and said, Really? They are twins. Ahahaha. Namikaze Minato saw that Kushina was so happy that she almost jumped up, and smiled, Look how happy you are. Naruto smiled and scratched his head. If Himawari and Boruto could see their grandparents, they would be very happy too. With the way Mom is, she would probably love them very much. The family was chatting happily, and Kushina suddenly frowned and said, It seems that happy times are fleeting. Naruto and Minato looked at each other and knew the reason. Kushina took a deep breath, looked at Naruto and said, Naruto, Mom's chakra to suppress the nine tails is almost exhausted, so you have to hurry up. Naruto took a deep breath. Although he was reluctant, he also hoped that he could stay here forever, but there was no way. He had to move forward bravely. Oh, I understand. Namikaze Minato looked at Naruto with relief. His child really became a ninja who could stand alone. In fact, according to what Naruto said, he would surpass the previous Hokage in the future. Naruto cheered up, and his consciousness slowly came out of his soul and returned to the sealed place. Naruto slowly raised his head and opened his eyes. Thinking about meeting his parents, Naruto smiled happily. The nine-tailed fox looked at Naruto and said angrily, What are you laughing at, kid? Naruto looked at the nine-tailed fox and said happily, I remembered something happy. As he spoke, Naruto stood up, and in the nine-tailed fox's shocked eyes, Naruto said, Okay, Kurama, the show ends here with you. As he spoke, Naruto's mind straightened, and in an instant, the nine-tailed fox's hateful chakra quickly retreated from Naruto's body, and was replaced by a blue chakra link formed by Naruto's own chakra. Kyuubi's eyes widened, and he said angrily, Impossible, you have been swallowed by my hatred. Even with Kushina's chakra, you can't easily get rid of all the hatred in an instant. Naruto smiled evilly, and made seals with his hands, saying, I've said it before, I came from the future, and I have influenced people with deeper hatred than you. Don't worry, Kurama, I will use this love to influence you in the future, but before that, I may have to force myself to do it first. As he said that, Naruto performed ninjutsu, multiple shadow clone technique. Kyuubi frowned and said in surprise, Come again. Naruto smiled, and hundreds of shadow clones, each with their own division of labor, began to fight. Some of the shadow clones began to roll balls. Spiral Super Multi-Link Ball. Then he jumped up. Jugo gnashed his teeth and said, You're using this trick again. Kid, don't underestimate me. The furious Jugo raised one hand and grabbed the chain on his body, using all his strength. Crack. The two chains were. The nine tails was pulled apart. In Naruto's soul, Minato Namikaze saw his son at a disadvantage and looked at Kushina and said, Wife. Kushina frowned and said, As expected of the nine tails, it is really powerful. It even has the strength to break the sealing chain. But, I am not a pushover. As she spoke, Kushina secretly exerted her strength to tighten a chain that locked the nine tails' legs. The nine tails could not stand steadily and was directly pulled to the ground by the chain. Good opportunity. In the air, Naruto's shadow clones jumped up, and orange eye shadow appeared in the corners of their eyes. Sage mode, turned on again. The Rasengan in his hand kept getting bigger. Sage technique, super large jade Rasengan multi-link ball. The nine tails, who was slumped on the ground, looked at the super large balls in front of him one after another, and his eyes almost popped out. It finally understood what Naruto always said, If you don't listen, I'll treat you to meatballs. This guy is too much of a bully. As soon as the nine tails finished complaining in his heart, Naruto's super large Rasengan came, one after another. Bang 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 bang. Like fireworks, it kept hitting the nine tails, beating the nine tails back again and again. Seeing this, another part of the shadow clone went directly to the blue chakra grabbing bar, like tug of war, pulling the nine tails chakra back. Kushina happily cheered for Naruto. Naruto, come on, it's almost there. Minato Namikaze wanted to go out to help his son at this moment, but he didn't move because he chose to believe in his son. Since Naruto said that he had successfully conquered the Nine Tails in the future, then he would have no problem in his rebirth. Naruto listened to his mother's encouragement and said confidently, I know, it's coming. Buzz buzz buzz. The high-speed rotation sound of breaking through the air sounded again, and the wind escape spiral shuriken appeared again. With the help of the shadow clone, Naruto opened his left and right hands, one spiral shuriken in each hand, and ran towards the Nine Tails at a rapid speed. The Nine Tails was beaten black and blue by the big Tama Marin. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Naruto coming. Kurama, keep going. Chew, chew. Naruto opened his bows left and right, threw out two spiral shuriken, directly hitting the Nine Tails, and then exploded instantly, forming two super large wind escape balls, which kept rotating and cutting the Nine Tails, pressing the Nine Tails, and kept retreating. With a bang, the two mobile phone sword balls exploded again, turning into two wind escape beams, hitting the Nine Tails' chest, pushing the Nine Tails, and retreating rapidly. The shadow clones that pulled the Nine Tails chakra also used this to help successfully pull a Nine Tails shaped chakra out of the Nine Tails body. Kushina said happily, it's successful, Naruto succeeded. As she said that, Kushina happily ran towards Minato, threw herself on him, wrapped her legs around Minato's waist, and laughed happily. The nine-tailed beast was stripped of its chakra, and Naruto successfully pulled it out. The orange-yellow nine-tailed chakra continued to flow into Naruto's soul and body, and then the nine-tailed chakra mode emerged, and the golden body Naruto was born. Naruto felt the changes in his body and clenched his fists. Sure enough, the familiar, warm power continued to flow from his heart. The nine-tailed beast, which was stripped of its chakra, was now pale and thin, and its whole body had lost a lot of weight. It stood up tremblingly, looking at Naruto, who had taken its chakra and successfully became the golden body. Its eyes almost popped out, and its angry heart was about to explode directly. Naruto, 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 you've completely pissed me off. Ah! The Nine Tails roared again and again, its anger rising continuously, and then it opened its mouth and began to condense the tailed beast ball. Minato Namikaze said in surprise, I didn't expect that after being pulled out of such a huge chakra ball, the Nine Tails still had such a powerful force. After realizing it, Minato looked at Kushina anxiously. The implication was that with such power, if the 8-diagram seal was not closed, Naruto might be in danger. Kushina felt the power in Naruto's seal, smiled slightly and said, Don't worry, Naruto has a very powerful sealing power in his body. Sure enough, Naruto looked at the Nine Tails, smiled slightly and said, Kurama, be patient. As he said that, he pressed his left hand on his belly button, where the seal was, and then turned the seal. Suddenly, one after another red-painted Myojin gate appeared out of thin air, falling from a high place, one after another, suppressing and sealing the Nine Tails of the Nine Tails. The Nine Tails was suppressed and roared in pain. Finally, the two largest red-painted Myojin gates fell, suppressing the half of the Nine Tails and the head of the Nine Tails respectively. At this point, the Nine Tails chakra was completely sealed, and the huge-tailed beast jade that had just condensed was instantly shattered, and then cracked and dispersed. The Nine Tails looked at the Myojin gate on his body in shock, feeling the power of suppressing his chakra, and said in surprise, This is 6 paths. The seal gate slowly closed, and the Bagua seal began to rotate and locked directly. The Nine Tails suddenly became weak, and his eyelids could hardly open. He slowly closed his eyes and finally said a cruel word, Remember this, Naruto. As he said, the Nine Tails closed his eyes completely. Naruto stood outside the sealed gate, sighed distressedly and said, Forgive me, Kurama, wait for me for a while, I have something to do here. After that, Naruto returned to the soul space. Kushina looked at Naruto, gave a thumbs up and said, Well done Naruto. Namikaze Minato said proudly, You are worthy of being my son, Naruto. Naruto smiled and scratched his head, a little embarrassed. Because, whether in the past life or this life, he rarely heard his parents' praise. Just when she was happy, Kushina suddenly looked at her hand and found that it was slowly fading. Naruto looked at his mother distressedly and said, Are we going to say goodbye? Namikaze Minato also looked at his own. Like Kushina, some parts of his body began to slowly fade. This is the situation where there is not much chakra and it is about to be exhausted. Before leaving, Minato Namikaze came to Naruto and said with guilt, "I'm sorry, Naruto, I made you the vessel of the Nine Tails and carried the burden of your parents. Dad is sorry for not giving you a perfect childhood." The feelings between father and son are often the most implicit and sincere. There is not only family affection, but also the feelings of cherishing each other between men. Father's love is like a mountain, solid and heavy. Naruto couldn't help but shed tears, then hugged his father, patted his back and said, "Don't be sorry, Dad. In the future, I will become a Hokage and fully understand your actions. I am very happy to have such a father who loves me and believes in me. Moreover, my parents are willing to sacrifice their lives for me. Before becoming this container, I have been filled with love, so I am very happy." Listening to his son's words, Namikaze Minato, such a strong man, could no longer hold back. He hugged Naruto and sobbed softly, muttering, "I'm sorry. Naruto, I'm sorry, son, Dad, I." Kushina was deeply moved. She and Minato's thoughts, this child, completely understood and understood. Kushina couldn't help but rush over. She hugged Naruto and Minato and said tearfully, "Naruto, thank you for letting me be your mother, thank you for letting Minato be your father, thank you for coming to us as a child." The figures of Kushina and Minato gradually faded, and then dissipated into golden light, completely leaving Naruto's soul space. Naruto closed his eyes, feeling the departure of his father and mother. 2 lines of hot tears flowed from the corners of his eyes, and the hands that were hugging him slowly dropped. Naruto opened his eyes. Seeing his parents again made his reborn heart more peaceful. He exited his soul space, then gathered the Nine Tails chakra into a huge blue chakra ball, placed it in a sealed place, sealed it with 4 Minxian gates, and took it out when he needed it. Then, Naruto came to the sealed gate and sighed at the Nine Tails with his eyes closed and snoring. "I'm sorry, old friend." Thinking of the previous life, in order to resist the violent attack of Jigen, he and the Nine Tails had to use the ultimate form, the heavy particle mode. Therefore, the Nine Tails sacrificed. Looking at the weak sleeping Nine Tails in the seal, Naruto covered his belly button and said with determination, "This time, Nine Tails, let me protect you." Then Naruto turned and left. In the secret room, Orochimaru, who had been paying attention to Naruto's condition, finally calmed down at this moment. It was too scary. Naruto almost had all 4 tails come out, but fortunately, there was no danger in the end. Naruto's chakra coat was all removed and he became a normal Naruto. Looking at Naruto like this, Konan asked uncertainly, "What is this? Did it succeed?" Although Orochimaru has studied the tailed beasts, he is not very clear about the way and process of mastering the chakra of the tailed beasts. He frowned and said, "It should be, anyway, it is not rampage, which means it is controllable and there is hope." As he was talking, Naruto opened his eyes. Then he stood up, stretched, and smiled at Orochimaru and Konan. "Hey, senior sister Konan, Uncle Orochimaru, I've kept you waiting for a long time." Orochimaru smiled slightly, and seeing Naruto's state, he knew that it should be successful. Then, Orochimaru unlocked the shadow clone technique and the 4 purple flame formation. Konan hurried over, looked at Naruto, and asked with concern, "How is it?" Naruto smiled and said, "Of course it was a quick success." Orochimaru stood up, walked over, and congratulated, "Congratulations, Naruto, by the way, can you let me see what it looks like to master the Nine Tails chakra?" Naruto looked at Orochimaru and smiled slightly, knowing that he was eager to learn and wanted to see what the Nine Tails chakra looked like. So, Naruto's mind moved, the Nine Tails chakra emerged, and the whole person turned into a golden Naruto. "This is the mode I use the Nine Tails chakra." Orochimaru surrounded Naruto, as if he was looking at a work of art, and said in surprise, "This chakra is such a strong life force." Konan was surprised. It is indeed very powerful, and it even changed Naruto's original chakra properties. "I have to remember it, otherwise I may perceive it wrongly in the future." Naruto smiled and said, "Speaking of perception, I am also very sensitive in the Nine Tails chakra mode, and I can also perceive other people's malice." Orochimaru said in surprise, "You mean, the ability to perceive evil and hatred is different from any other type of perception?" Naruto nodded. Orochimaru said thoughtfully, "So this is the power of the Jinchuriki who controls the Nine Tails." Naruto added, "Not only that, now I have greatly improved my chakra volume, speed of action, and the volume of ninjutsu. Conan asked on the side. Then, Naruto, your current strength is probably. Naruto thought about it and replied, if I only calculate it based on strength, I should be able to reach the level of Kage now. Orochimaru nodded and agreed. Naruto's current strength is definitely Kage level. Conan said happily, really? That's great. Naruto withdrew the Nine Tails chakra mode and smiled. Senior sister, you seem very happy. Conan said, you are the leader of the Sky Organization. If you are not strong, the Hidden Rain village will not be able to be defended sooner or later, and there will be no long-term peace. Naruto nodded. It was true. Strength is the eternal truth of this world, oh no, even this universe. The Otsutsuki clan is strong, so they look at the humans in this world like ants. Thinking of this, Naruto looked at Orochimaru and said, Uncle Snake, next, you have to do it yourself. Orochimaru said, oh, Naruto finally asked him to do it. Naruto nodded, then took Orochimaru and Conan to find Nagato. Because he wanted to find senior brother Nagato, lend me something. After listening to Naruto's suggestion, Nagato fell into a brief silence. Xiaonan said anxiously, no, Naruto, if you do this, what about pain? For this country, it will directly lose its spiritual leader and barrier. And, as he said, Xiaonan looked at Nagato and said, Naruto, your current strength is already at the level of Kage, and it is just around the corner to become a super Kage in the future. Although the Samsara Eye can instantly enhance your strength, for Nagato, pain will disappear directly. This is equivalent to the Sky Organization directly losing a Kage-level existence. Once you have something and cannot get away, or cannot return to the Hidden Rain village in time, who will protect our base camp? Faced with senior sister Xiaonan's inquiry, Naruto could not deny that it was true. But he had to do this. Because if his strength was not strong, the entire ninja world might not exist. And, for Nagato, he also had other considerations. Just as he was about to speak, Nagato said, that's enough, Conan. Since Junior Naruto has decided to do this, he must have his reasons. I believe him. After Nagato finished speaking, he looked at Naruto and said, I think Junior Naruto wants the Samsara Eye because he wants to do something very unbelievable. Sometimes, a glance is enough between men. Meeting Nagato's gaze, Naruto nodded firmly. Seeing this, Conan sighed. She understood that since Nagato didn't object, she had no choice but to support it. I'll go and modify the clothes of the 10 organization. Conan threw down this sentence and turned away. Obviously, she didn't want to watch Nagato lose his Samsara Eye in person. Orochimaru smacked his lips, as if he was looking forward to some delicious food. For him, the fact that Naruto wanted to transplant the Samsara Eye was really exciting. This was the first time he had done such a surgical operation. Naruto looked at Nagato and said, don't worry, senior brother. I won't let you down with this decision. Nagato smiled slightly. Under the illusion of Koto Amatsukami, he had already regarded Naruto as a figure like Yahiko. He felt that Naruto was the hope of the future of the ninja world. Since he couldn't see the future clearly through these immortal eyes, he would lend them to his junior brother and let him help him see clearly. In a room, Nagato was supported by Naruto and lying on the operating table. This is where Nagato made pain. Now, it has been transformed by Orochimaru into a temporary research institute, which is the operating room at the moment. Because Nagato needed a lot of medical instruments when making pain, Orochimaru used local materials and basically had all the surgical instruments he needed. Nagato was very thin. Because he had a black stick inserted in his body for a long time, emitting chakra, his body was drained a lot. The only thing that attracted attention was his pair of reincarnation eyes. There was a different light in his eyes. Junior brother, do you think Yahiko will be resurrected like Orochimaru one day? Orochimaru, who was packing up the surgical instruments, looked up. Naruto looked at Nagato and thought about his past life. At the last moment, Nagato chose to believe in himself and performed the 6 paths of reincarnation. So he said, brother, you already know the 6 paths of reincarnation, why don't you? The implication was why Nagato didn't choose to resurrect Yahiko. Nagato sighed and said, because this world makes me despair. Even if I resurrect Yahiko again, I will repeat the same mistakes. The world is still the same world. I can resurrect Yahiko once, can I resurrect Yahiko a second time? What's more, the price of the 6 paths of reincarnation is the loss of the life of the caster. Even if Yahiko comes back, will he not forgive me for this? At this point, Nagato couldn't help but lower his head. Naruto looked at Nagato thoughtfully and replied calmly, what if I say that Yahiko will come back? Nagato slowly raised his head, stared at Naruto with his samsara eyes, and said, will this world change? Naruto smiled and nodded very seriously. Nagato was very satisfied. He got Naruto's affirmative answer. This was a promise. Although this promise seemed a little illusory to outsiders, it was hope for Nagato. Hope for a new world. Orochimaru put on surgical gloves and came to Naruto and said, Naruto-kun, please move aside. I will remove the black stick from Nagato first. Naruto moved aside and sat on the chair next to him. Orochimaru gave Nagato anesthesia and then began to remove the black stick. After removing it, he applied medicine to Nagato and tied it with gauze. Naruto watched Orochimaru working, then noticed Nagato's feet, and subconsciously asked, Uncle Orochimaru, I remember you did some research on Hashirama cells, right? While wrapping bandages around Nagato, Orochimaru replied, yes. When I was in Konoha, I started studying Hashirama cells. At that time, I was still doing it secretly under the guise of legality, but there were many failures. The only successful experiment was the one that I think you should know, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded and said, I know, Captain Yamato, right? Orochimaru smiled, as if he was recalling a very beautiful thing, or was proud that he had made a good work of art. Yes, I gave up on that experiment at the end. Yamato was able to survive thanks to Danzo, who broke into the research institute I left behind, rescued Yamato and brought him the roots. Thinking about his inner thoughts, Naruto continued, so now, Uncle Orochimaru, have you cultivated Hashirama cells and transplanted them? Orochimaru stopped his movements and looked at Naruto and said, are you worried that you can't suppress the samsara eye, so you want to learn from Danzo and transplant Hashirama cells? Nagato also looked over curiously. Naruto shook his head and said, that's not the case. Senior brother Nagato and I both belong to the Uzumaki clan. I can control the transplantation of the samsara eye. What's more, I am different from others. Having said that, Naruto didn't continue. In fact, he wanted to say that he was still the reincarnation of Ashura. With the blood of the 6-path sage, it was not a problem for him to control the samsara eye. Then why are you asking this? Orochimaru did not dwell on what Naruto said, why he was different from others, but continued to ask Naruto about the purpose of transplanting Hashirama's cells. Naruto pointed at senior brother Nagato's feet and said, I want Uncle Orochimaru to use Hashirama's cells to cultivate 2 new feet and connect them to senior brother Nagato. Nagato looked at Naruto and said with some emotion, Junior brother, you. Unexpectedly, Naruto was doing it for himself. Orochimaru frowned and said, it's a bit difficult, because at present, my research and understanding of Hashirama's cells, even if it is not for the purpose of mastering wood release, as a simple organ transplant, the transplanted body is likely to be rejected in the original body, and in severe cases, it may die. As for Yamato, that is a very special case. You know, I have found a lot of experimental subjects for Hashirama's cell transplantation, all of them have very special physiques, and basically all of them died. Nagato's eyes dimmed when he heard Orochimaru say this. Orochimaru said that he had found a lot of experimental subjects, all of them had special physiques, but they all died. The implication is that although your Uzumaki clan has strong vitality, you may also die. Naruto said confidently. Don't worry about this, Uncle Snake, I know how to improve Hashirama's cells so that they will not be rejected. Orochimaru looked at Naruto in shock and asked in disbelief, Naruto-kun, are you serious? Nagato also cast a hopeful look. Naruto smiled and nodded confidently. In the past, Naruto lost his right hand in the Fourth Ninja World War because he tried to stop Sasuke. Later, under the auspices of Grandma Tsunade, Shizune's modified Hashirama cells were successfully fused with Naruto's cells, thus cultivating Naruto's organ right hand and successfully transplanting it. After Naruto became Hokage, the confidential files of Hashirama cells were naturally open to him. I wanted to make one for Sasuke. Therefore, Naruto followed up and paid attention to this project very seriously, and Naruto also knew the key parts of the improvement. Moreover, Naruto at that time also thought that this technology could be used to benefit mankind, used in medical scenarios, and help those with disabilities. Later, due to cost issues, civilian use has been stagnant and can only be used for military research. Now, Naruto's plan for Nagato is to let him stand up again, like a normal person, and assist him. Orochimaru licked his lips. Naruto-kun really made him feel more and more excited. He was looking forward to this win, taking him to witness the birth of so many truths and sciences. Orochimaru smiled and continued to work. After following Naruto, Orochimaru suddenly felt that life suddenly had meaning, because there were so many interesting things. Nagato was also very excited. When fighting Hanzo, his legs were entangled by too many explosive talismans, and they were directly blown to pieces. The nerve system on his feet was blown away and there was no cure. Now, according to his junior brother, he should be able to transplant new organ feet. Thinking that he could follow his junior brother in the future and run together on the road to chasing the new world, Nagato was very happy. After Orochimaru helped Nagato wrap the bandage, he looked at Naruto and said, "Naruto-kun, you go over there too and get ready. I'm going to start the operation on you." As he said that, Orochimaru directly formed a seal and performed the shadow clone technique. 3 Orochimaru clones appeared as assistants to help. Seeing this, Naruto walked to the operating table next to him and sat down. Orochimaru came to Nagato with a syringe, motioned him to lie down, and then prepared to give him an injection for anesthesia. Nagato looked at Orochimaru and said, "Sorry for the trouble." Orochimaru inserted a needle into Nagato's shoulder, and the pusher of the syringe slowly pushed forward, comforting him. "Count to 8. Nagato looked at the ceiling and began to count. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Before he counted to 3, Nagato was completely motionless and fell asleep. Naruto was surprised and said, "So fast." Orochimaru pulled out the needle and handed it to the shadow clone next to him, saying, "Use general anesthesia, you will faint quickly, lie down, it's your turn." As he spoke, the shadow clone Orochimaru next to Naruto began to anesthetize Naruto. Naruto lay down and felt the needle entering his body. Then, a long-lost feeling of fatigue slowly surged into his heart, just like the waves, one wave stronger than the other. The feeling became stronger and stronger, and after a few counts, Naruto fell into a deep sleep. The moment he closed his eyes, he tilted his head to look at Nagato next to him and found that Orochimaru had already started to work on Nagato's samsara eye. It was unknown how long it took before Naruto woke up slowly. He got up with difficulty, and soon someone came to help him. "Junior brother, how do you feel?" It was the voice of senior sister Xiaonan. Naruto's hand touched his eyes involuntarily, and found that his eyes were tightly wrapped with bandages. Orochimaru said in time, "Naruto, don't try to open your eyelids yet. The transplant has just been completed, and the flesh and blood need to be integrated." Naruto nodded, and then said, "Sister Xiaonan, I'm fine, I feel okay. By the way, how is brother Nagato?" Cough cough cough. A few coughs came, and Nagato said, "He's lying on the bed next to you." Naruto listened to the sound, tilted his head in that direction, and asked with a smile, "How does brother feel?" Nagato smiled and responded, "It's okay. I hope that after recovery, I can use my brother's eyes to see a different world." At this point, Xiaonan noticed that Nagato's mouth had a smile. Naruto laughed. Orochimaru successfully exchanged his eyes with Nagato's eyes. For Nagato, this is also a relief. Because since childhood, Jiraiya told Nagato that the samsara eye was something only immortals possessed. Therefore, Nagato, he has been carrying a fate since he was young, although this fate was imposed on him by Uchiha Madara, but there is no way, he was equipped with these eyes, which destined him to have a complicated fate. Now, Naruto has taken this fate on his shoulders, and Nagato, who has transplanted Naruto's eyes, suddenly feels relieved. It's like he has let go of something. He is no longer pain, he is no longer the one with the samsara eye. Who is he? He is himself, he is Nagato. At this moment, he has gained a new life. The wound was so severe that it was not easy to recover. Naruto recovered very quickly. Because the Nine Tails chakra itself has a strong vitality and can quickly recover from injuries, which is why Naruto recovered faster than others. In his previous life, when fighting against the mist ninja Momochi Zabuza, Naruto stabbed his right hand with a kunai to express his determination. At that time, Kakashi was very shocked to see Naruto's wound, which healed quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Now, Orochimaru has also witnessed the speed at which Naruto heals his wounds. "Uncle Snake, I think I can open my eyes," Orochimaru said, put down the tools in his hand, came to Naruto, looked carefully, and asked, "Are you sure you can open your eyes?" Naruto nodded and said, "Sure, my eyeballs can move flexibly." Nagato sighed. "You are worthy of being my junior brother, you are much better than me." Orochimaru thought for a while and said, "It should be the effect of the Nine Tails chakra in Naruto's body. After all, such chakra has too strong vitality." As he said, Orochimaru removed the stitches for Naruto, and then pulled out the gauze wrapped around Naruto's eyes one circle at a time. "Okay, Naruto-kun, you can open your eyes." Naruto rolled his eyeballs, and then slowly opened his eyes. Orochimaru said excitedly as if he was looking at a rare treasure, "The lavender pupils, 3 circles of reincarnation waves, it seems that the eyes of the immortal can see through everything in this world." "Naruto-kun, congratulations." Naruto raised the corner of his mouth. "I have to thank my senior brother. If it weren't for his agreement, I wouldn't be able to obtain this power." Nagato smiled and said, "Actually, I want to thank you, junior brother. These eyes have given me too many missions. Since I can't see clearly, let me pursue the light of the new world for me." Orochimaru laughed at himself and said, "Don't be afraid of you laughing at me. The first time I saw the reincarnation eye was when I fought with Pain. At that time, I used countless means to get these eyes. As a result, Pain, who was controlled by Nagato, beat me badly." Nagato smiled in a low voice. "This is indeed the case." Orochimaru looked at Naruto and continued, "To be honest, when I transplanted your eyes just now, I almost ran away secretly when I saw the samsara eye in my hand." Naruto said, "Oh, why didn't you?" Orochimaru sighed, turned around and continued to pack up the equipment, and responded while packing, "In the past, I always wanted to be the wind and drive the windmill, but after meeting Naruto, I now experience the fun of waiting for the wind. Besides, things in the world are always changing. I am very curious about the ending between Naruto and Sasuke. So, I choose to stay here and wait patiently for the wind that Naruto will bring." Naruto smiled knowingly and said, "Don't worry, Uncle Snake, I will bring you a new world of truth." Nagato listened to Naruto's confident words and Orochimaru's words of surrender from the heart, and his heart became more peaceful. He felt that his decision to believe in his junior brother was so wise. While chatting, Xiaonan walked in with a piece of clothing. "Hey, Junior Naruto, you." Konan, who was about to say hello, saw Naruto's eyes and was a little uncomfortable for a moment. Naruto was surprised and said, "Senior sister Konan, what's wrong?" Konan woke up from her daze and shook her head and said, "Nothing, it's just that the first time I saw your samsara eye, I felt it was a little inappropriate. I feel that you are a little more cold at the moment, and lack the warm feeling of a big boy before." Nagato smiled and said, "Junior brother has changed a pair of eyes, and the change is so big. Then, after transplanting junior brother's eyes, will I become a warm boy in the future?" Konan rolled her eyes at Nagato, and then handed the clothes in her hand to Naruto and said, "It's just that your eyes are healed, take a look, how about the clothes of the 10 organization that have been modified according to your request?" Naruto took it in his hand and looked at the style. "Not bad, very good, blue sky and white clouds, this is the uniform that the 10 organization should have. Not bad, senior sister Xiaonan is really virtuous. An expert can tell whether it is good or not as soon as she makes a move. I am very satisfied." Xiaonan blushed when Naruto praised her. "Then, I will follow this template, and then use rainproof materials on the outside, and start making it according to your size." Naruto nodded and said, "Okay, I have a suggestion by the way. You can follow the common S clothing sizes, make dozens of sets for backup." Quote. Konan looked up at Naruto. Such a large-scale production of uniforms, it is obvious that the team is going to expand, leaving them for the newcomers to wear. Naruto met Konan's gaze and said, "Sister Konan, you are right. If one day I am away and cannot return to the Hidden Rain Village, then someone attacks the Hidden Rain Village, which is also a troublesome thing. Therefore, our team must continue to expand. Not only do I want to be strong, I also want to lead this team to become stronger together. One day, we will become the real sky of this ninja world. Quote. The old man was very tired. I'm so tired. Samui shook his neck, then pressed it with his hand, then turned back and looked at the two people behind him and said, Hey, can you walk a little faster? Karui complained, It's Omoi, you're always dawdling, and I don't know what you're mumbling. Karui walked over angrily, twisted Omoi's ear and walked forward. Hey, didn't you hear Samui say it? Konoha is ahead, why are you dawdling? What are you mumbling all the way? Omoi slapped Karui's hand away and said, I was thinking about how we left the village. When we came back, we saw the tears of Raikage. What should we do if we found the village was wet like Kurigakure? Quote. Karui looked at Omoi like an idiot and said, I say, are you stupid? You know how many tears you have to cry to make a lake. Omoi retorted disapprovingly, but the other party is Raikage. If he has that kind of strength, crying out a lake is a piece of cake. Maybe it will become a sea and the village will be flooded. I can't swim, so what should I do? After saying that, Omoi looked melancholy. Karui said impatiently, Oh, so noisy, your ideas are so whimsical and tiring, I feel tired just listening to them. Omoi said again, Samui always said that the chest is heavy and the shoulders are tired, I can understand, but, Karui, your chest is flatter than mine, I really. While talking, Omoi also gestured and measured with his hands. As a result, before he finished speaking, he was kicked away by the angry Karui with a right whip kick. Bakiaro, you fool, what do you know? Miss, my proud figure is called natural beauty. Omoi was kicked 5 or 6 meters away, lying on the ground, holding her stomach and groaning, Ah, it hurts. Seeing this, Samui came over trembling and said, Hey, you two, don't delay the mission time, Konoha is not far ahead, hurry up and continue on the road. Karui snorted coldly, glanced at Samui's size, a little envious and jealous, and folded his hands on his chest to cover it up. Omoi got up from the ground and said resentfully, Telling the truth will also be. Looking at Karui's murderous eyes, Omoi decided to shut up. Konoha Village, Hokage Office. Samui looked at Tsunade, then took out the secret documents he was carrying from his chest. This is the document that our Raikage-sama presented to Hokage-sama. Seeing this, Shizune took the letter and handed it to Tsunade. Tsunade opened it and read it at a glance. After a few minutes, Tsunade put the letter in her hand down, closed her eyes and thought, frowning. Samui looked at Tsunade expressionlessly and said, Hokage-sama, our Raikage-sama hopes that you can give us a reply after reading this letter, so that we can return to the Hidden Cloud Village to report. Tsunade thought for a moment and said, I already know the attitude of Raikage-sama, and I will participate. At the same time, Konoha will send out chasing ninjas again. I hope that Hidden Cloud Village can give us some time. Samui nodded and said, Okay, then I will reply to Raikage-sama in accordance with Hokage-sama's intention. Goodbye. With that, Samui was about to leave. Tsunade said, Wait. Samui turned around and said, Is there anything else, Hokage? Tsunade smiled and said, You three have come from afar, and Konoha has not yet fulfilled its hospitality. At the very least, you can have a meal and stay overnight before leaving. Karui frowned and said, Uchiha Sasuke of your Konoha has captured my master. My master is still in danger of death. How can we eat? Omoi nodded in agreement. At this moment, thinking about his master falling into the hands of Akatsuki, and not knowing what kind of torture he is suffering now, he felt very uncomfortable in his heart and even cried. Wow, our master is so miserable. He was burned by the Uchiha brat with black flames. Karui slapped him and said, Can you stop crying every day? What are you doing? Cursing the master to death. Samui looked at Tsunade and said, Hokage-sama, you can see that not only the two of them, but also everyone in Kumogakure takes this matter very seriously, especially Raikage-sama. Because Master Killer Bee is Master Raikage's most beloved brother. After that, Samui bowed and said, Sorry, Master Hokage, we will visit Konoha next time. After that, Samui turned and left. Tsunade looked at the Kumogakure group leaving and sighed. Shizune frowned and said, is it about Sasuke? Tsunade stood up and nodded, yes. It's really one wave after another. Naruto's matter hasn't been settled yet, and Sasuke's matter has come again. Tsunade said to Shizune, go find Kakashi and ask him to come to the office for a meeting in the evening. After that, Tsunade left with the Raikage's letter. Shizune asked, no problem. By the way, Master Tsunade, where are you going? Tsunade said without turning back, to find that dead ghost. Shizune was stunned at first, and then laughed. The old man was very happy. Oh my, what a wonderful material. Tisk tisk tisk, I never thought that there are such towering mountains and rivers in Konoha village, it's really unforgettable. It's almost night in Konoha, and the moon is on the treetops. At 6 or 7 o'clock in Konoha, the bustling commercial street is full of people. At the end of the street, there is a famous hot spring bathhouse, outside the wall of the girls' bathroom. Jiraiya is hiding by the wall, lying in front of the hole that he finally opened with a small drill, admiring the beautiful scenery inside. In the bathroom, the mist is curling, and the girls, most of them wrapped in bath towels, are soaking in the hot spring, splashing water on each other and playing. This hot spring bath shop is mainly for young people, so the people who come here are all beautiful girls. Occasionally, a girl's bath towel falls off because of playing. Because the steam of the sauna is too heavy, it feels like holding a lute and half covering the face. It is this hazy feeling that makes Jiraiya instantly raise his gun, and even wants to drop his only hand to challenge the dragon. Such a beautiful scene makes Jiraiya's eyes almost pop out. The title of the lecherous immortal is not called for nothing. Jiraiya wiped his saliva and sighed. It's really wonderful, what a pity. What a pity. An abrupt voice sounded, and Jiraiya, who was concentrating, didn't care, and replied subconsciously, it's a pity that they are all unopened, and they are too pure, not mature enough, and there is no. While speaking, Jiraiya, as a writer, was still thinking about words. Nothing. The voice asked again. Jiraiya touched his chin and tasted it. It's not as charming as Tsunade's. I still like Tsunade's big and white. Hee hee. As he said that, Jiraiya laughed foolishly. Really, let me see inside. Jiraiya was not happy, and waved his hand and said, go away, dig a hole yourself, don't. That's not right. Why does the person who asked his voice sound so familiar? The next second, Jiraiya looked back. It didn't matter that he looked at it, but he almost scared his soul to death. Tsunade looked at him with a smile, and whispered, what are you doing here? This tone was too gentle, so gentle that it made people want to die. Jiraiya swallowed a mouthful of saliva in fear and trembled to get up. I am collecting novel materials, hee hee. Although Tsunade was bent over at the moment, Jiraiya could see the scenery that he could not see normally, but he had no time to appreciate it, because if he did not run, he might die. In just a few seconds, he regretted not learning the flying thunder god of the 4th generation. Tsunade said meaningfully, then stood up and tilted his head to look at Jiraiya. Jiraiya noticed that Tsunade's hands had begun to clench slowly, and he could hear the sound of her knuckles crackling. If he didn't run now, when would he run? Excuse me. With that, Jiraiya pulled up his pants and ran away. Unfortunately, Tsunade was not a pushover, after all, she was the 5th Hokage. Jiraiya was strong, but after the battle with Pain, his physical combat qualities in all aspects dropped by 40%. As a result, he was inevitably beaten by Tsunade. Hokage, office, Master Jiraiya, what happened to your face? Kakashi asked with concern. Jiraiya, with a swollen nose and face, was speechless and looked at Tsunade, then timidly said, it's okay. The street lights in Konoha are not very bright. I didn't see the road clearly for a moment and fell. Kakashi looked at Master Tsunade, who was folding her hands and looking serious, and then looked at Master Jiraiya's miserable condition. He would never believe it. What kind of road could make Jiraiya, one of the 3 ninjas, fall like this? Shizune chuckled and rushed to the infirmary to find some swelling-reducing medicine to apply and take for Master Jiraiya. Okay, forget about him, Kakashi. Let's have a meeting and talk about Sasuke. Tsunade said, looking at Kakashi, the Raikage has submitted a document to me today. You just read it. What do you think? Kakashi took a deep breath and said, I hope that the Hokage can try his best to communicate with the Raikage. After all, Sasuke is the only bloodline of the Uchiha clan. Tsunade nodded. During her reign, she had never. Sasuke sent out the chasing ninjas because Senju and Uchiha were the founding clans of Konoha, and once Uchiha Itachi died, Sasuke was the only bloodline of the Uchiha clan. For Konoha, the significance of his existence is very important, symbolizing the integrity of Konoha. If Sasuke died, the Uchiha clan would be completely gone. Just like the Senju clan now only has me left. When I get old or die in battle, will that Konoha still be Konoha? Therefore, regardless of Naruto and Kakashi's emotional appeals, Tsunade also wants to save Sasuke. Even if he is locked up in the village and becomes a mascot, it is better than dying outside the village. Tsunade sighed and said, I understand. I will try my best to negotiate with Raikage-sama. By the way, I will attend the meeting this time, and I will leave the village to you. Kakashi was a little dazed and said, I don't have to go. The guards around you, Hokage-sama. Tsunade glanced at Jiraiya and said, I was planning to take you with me, but I thought about it and decided to leave you in the village. As for the guards, Jiraiya can go with me. Jiraiya said, you want me to go? Tsunade's eyebrows he frowned and said, what's wrong? Do you have any objections? Jiraiya remembered the fist as big as a sandbag just now, and said fearfully, no objections, no objections. Shizune pushed the door open at this time, came to Jiraiya and said, Master Jiraiya, I will treat you. Jiraiya smiled and said, thank you for the trouble. Tsunade frowned a little, then looked at Kakashi and said, you go down first. By the way, when I'm not here, you can mobilize the Anbu guards of the Hokage to help me watch Danzo. Kakashi nodded and obeyed, then retreated. Tsunade came to Shizune, took the cotton swab and said, Shizune, you've worked hard, you go down too. Shizune said, then picked up Zuzu, walked away in small steps, and did not forget to close the door. Tsunade dipped a cotton swab in iodine and wiped Jiraiya's red and swollen face, and Jiraiya screamed in pain. What? Any objection? Jiraiya shuddered and said, no. No objection. Tsunade applied the medicine with a resentful look in her eyes, and teased with a slight curl of her lips, as that thing so attractive. Smelling the fragrance on Tsunade's body and looking at the large cafeteria within reach, Jiraiya tried his best to control his eyes and said, ahem. It's okay, I won't do it next time. Tsunade stopped and said sternly, there will be a next time. Jiraiya waved his hands quickly and said, no, 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 there will be no next time. He thought Tsunade was going to hit him again. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya, was silent for a few seconds, and then asked, are the things you said by the wall true? Jiraiya raised his eyes and asked in confusion, what did you say? Tsunade's ears were a little red, you said no, what do I have? Jiraiya thought about it, then smiled fearfully, sorry, I was just joking, don't be angry. Tsunade glared and said, just joking. You mean I don't have it? Jiraiya waved his hands hurriedly and said, no, 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 I don't mean that, I am. Jiraiya, who was explaining, suddenly stopped talking. At this moment, his eyes were wide open, his pupils shrank, his eyes were focused, and his face was full of surprise. Tsunade, who was standing in front of Jiraiya, bent down at this moment, put one hand on Jiraiya's shoulder, turned her head away, not looking at Jiraiya, her ears were all red, and her cheeks were pink. You only need 1 minute to collect the materials you want. Konoha village, at the entrance of the village. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya and Shizune and said, I'll leave it to you two when I'm away. Kakashi said solemnly, don't worry, Tsunade-sama. Shizune said worriedly, Tsunade-sama, do you really not need me to accompany you? Shizune has been with Tsunade for so many years, and she basically stays with her whenever she goes out. Now, Tsunade is going to attend the 5-cage conference, and Shizune is a little worried without her company. After all, she has been taking care of Tsunade-sama's daily life for these years. Tsunade smiled and said, it's okay. This time, you stay in the village and assist Kakashi well. Shizune looked at Jiraiya next to her and nodded, okay. Then, let's say goodbye. Tsunade turned and left. Jiraiya was still in a daze until Tsunade went over and kicked him, and then he came to his senses. Ah, you're leaving now. Tsunade frowned and said, what else do you want to do? You are absent-minded so early in the morning. What are you thinking about? Jiraiya and Tsunade talked while walking. When Jiraiya was asked what he was thinking about, the scene in the Hokage's office last night suddenly appeared in his mind. That scene really lingered in his mind for a long time. In particular, Jiraiya also saw a touch of cherry blossom red. Looking at Tsunade, Jiraiya was very depressed. How did she and Duan fall in love at that time? What was Duan doing at that time? You know, as the best-selling author of Intimate Paradise, Jiraiya has done some research on this aspect. Seeing a touch of cherry blossom red shows that Tsunade is still intact. Ha 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 ha. Thinking about Tsunade's attitude towards him last night, Jiraiya suddenly felt that life was full of hope. It's not easy. After so many years, it's finally over. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya's secretly happy expression and frowned. I said, why are you grinning alone? Jiraiya tilted his head, scratched his head and laughed. I suddenly remembered the happy things last night. Looking at his expression, Tsunade had already guessed it, and her face blushed slightly. Then she strode forward, ignoring Jiraiya. Jiraiya carried his luggage and hurried to catch up, jogging and complaining, hey, we were talking well, why did you suddenly speed up? Wait for me, I'm still carrying luggage, can you take care of the disabled? Konoha, Root. In the secret room, Sai, Aburame Tone, and Yamanaka Fu, 3 people half knelt on the ground. Not far in front of them, Danzo sat there, his only eye tightly closed. So, Tsunade and Jiraiya have left Konoha village. Yamanaka Fu looked at Danzo and replied, yes, Danzo-sama. Hokage-sama and Jiraiya-sama have left Konoha half an hour ago to attend the 5-cage talks. Hearing the words, 5-cage talks, Danzo's only left hand couldn't help but clench the scepter in his hand. 5-cage talks. He should have been the one to talk. As a result, because of this Naruto, not only did he take away Shisui's eyes, but he also cut off his right arm. You know, there are 10 Sharingan on that right arm. 10 Sharingan can launch 10 Izanagi techniques, such a heaven-defying ninjutsu. Thinking of this, Danzo's heart was bleeding. Years of hard work, the position of Hokage, all gone. The depression in his heart made his face so gloomy that water was about to drip. He opened his only eye, looked at Sai below and asked, I asked you to check Naruto's whereabouts, how is it going? Sai lowered his head and reported. It is reported that after Naruto left Konoha, he seemed to have joined the Akatsuki organization, and there are rumors that Naruto seems to have become the leader of Pain, and took Pain to fight with the rebellious ninja Sasuke. Danzo frowned slightly. He was a little confused, because he couldn't see through Naruto's intentions. Taking away his right eye and right arm, he could understand that Naruto wanted to gain power, but joining Akatsuki and becoming a part of Pain, what kind of operation is this, and what is the purpose? Revenge on Konoha. Danzo thought it was very likely. After all, when Naruto was a child, he was discriminated against in the village, and it was understandable that he turned evil. Well, when I think about it this way, it seems that it also makes sense for him to attack me. No, he couldn't just sit there and wait for death in Konoha, he had to take action. Sai, go down, remember, continue to detect Naruto's whereabouts and news. Sai nodded and said, hi. After that, he turned and went down. After Sai left, Danzo said, Feng, Hyujin, you two come with me. Walking out of the route, Sai walked in Konoha village, the sun scattered on his shoulders, and at this moment, he felt a little heavy. Naruto-kun, what are you doing now? Also, you are so determined to dream of Hokage, and you are so persistent in getting Sasuke back, why do you want to defect from Konoha? Sai suddenly felt a little sad. Because he had been trained by the root to be a killing machine, he had no concept of emotion. It was Naruto who constantly influenced him to recall the time he spent with his brother Shin, so that he regained the concept of emotion. Then he had the idea of disobeying orders and helping Naruto bring back Sasuke. And now, the person who made him have emotions has walked to the opposite side of himself. Thinking of this, Sai was confused. He wanted to meet Naruto. He wanted to ask him, why? The hidden treasures of the rain are still alive. The Hidden Rain Village. Under Nagato's guidance, Naruto completely mastered the Samsara Eye. Watching Naruto skillfully use the Shinra Tensei and Wanxiang Tianyan of the Heavenly Path, Human Path, Animal Path, Hungry Ghost Path, Hell Path, sheer path, Nagato was very pleased. Orochimaru looked at Naruto with an ant's smile, it was perfect. Naruto now has the Samsara Eye, Sage Mode, Nine Tails Mode, Space-Time Ninjutsu Flying Thunder God, this. In the past, if Orochimaru had such a configuration, he would wake up laughing in his dreams. Xiaonan was also very happy. Naruto was now a super shadow, which meant that if Naruto wanted, he could raise the status of Rain Village to the same level as the 5 major ninja villages. Because Naruto alone could beat any ninja village in the ninja world. After Naruto finished the experiment, he returned to the platform and came in front of everyone. Looking at the surprised expressions of several people, Naruto smiled and said, "What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Why are you looking at me like this?" Nagato leaned on his crutches and said, "Everyone is happy for you." Naruto laughed, then looked at Nagato and said, "Brother, don't worry, Uncle Snake and I will let you run around normally in the world as soon as possible." As he said that, Naruto looked at Orochimaru and took out a scroll from his pocket. On it was written the key to Hashirama's cell fusion breakthrough. Orochimaru met Naruto's eyes, then opened the scroll, looked at it for a few times, and said with shining eyes, "Oh, so that's it, no wonder there was always rejection in those steps of the experiment before." When Nagato heard Orochimaru's excited tone, he knew that his legs had a chance. Orochimaru closed the scroll and said, "Naruto-kun, I may be away for a few days, I want to get some of my things back." Naruto nodded and said, "You are going to your laboratory to get something, right?" Orochimaru nodded and said, "Yes, I will go and look for it. Now I don't know if those laboratories are still there, but don't worry, I left many laboratories, there must be something I need." "No problem, be careful on the road." Seeing that Naruto trusted him so much and didn't even worry about him running away, Orochimaru's good impression of Naruto increased a few points. It even made Orochimaru think of Jiraiya in an instant. That guy also trusted him so much. "Be careful on the road." As he said that, Naruto grabbed Orochimaru's hand, then rolled up his sleeves and marked a ninja sword of love. Orochimaru smiled bitterly and said, "Are you worried that I'll run away, Naruto-kun?" He was still praising him in the last second, and he did this to himself in the next second. Naruto smiled and said, "Uncle Snake, don't think too much. This is for you to save your life. If you encounter a difficult one and you really can't get rid of it, inject chakra into this mark, I will sense it, and I will be there in a few seconds. And, Uncle Snake, if you really want to get rid of this mark, there is a way." Orochimaru smiled. That's right. He can just change the curse seal and revive again. Even the god of death can't trap him, the lazy snake, just like this, flying thunder god. Orochimaru put down his sleeves and left. Konan looked at Naruto and said, "What should we do next?" Naruto thought for a moment and said, "First, keep Senior Yahiko's body in cold storage. I'll need it later." Nagato looked at Naruto and Naruto smiled and said, "Yes, that's what you think." Konan couldn't help but cover her mouth. Could it be that Yahiko is really coming back? Senior sister Konan, senior brother Nagato, stretch out your hands. As he spoke, Naruto also marked Nagato and Konan, and then said, "I have set up a time-space barrier near this tower. It comes from the sealing technique of the Uzumaki clan. The range is limited and can only protect this tower. The time-space mark of the fake Uchiha Madara on this tower has completely failed, but he can still sneak into Yugakure." Konan looked at Naruto and asked, "Naruto, you just said that the masked man is not the legendary Uchiha Madara." Naruto remembered that at this time, Konan and Nagato still assumed that Obito was Uchiha Madara. He smiled and said, "No, Madara died a long time ago. The masked man was just a spokesperson chosen by Madara. Speaking of which, my relationship with him is quite complicated." Nagato was surprised and asked, "You know him?" Naruto nodded with a wry smile. "More than knowing him. If we really count the relationship, it's a mess. Obito is his father's student. From this level, Obito and himself are brothers. However, Kakashi is his homeroom teacher, and Obito and Kakashi are classmates. From this level, Obito is Naruto's uncle. The most exciting thing is coming. He is also Jiraiya's last disciple, so he and his father Minato are of the same generation, and are brothers. Minato is also Obito's teacher. from this perspective, Naruto is Obito's uncle. By the way, not only Naruto is, Nagato, Konan, Yahiko, all are. Thinking of this, Naruto looked at Nagato with some depression, thinking, if I hadn't been reborn, you would be the same as Obito, a guy who betrays his teacher and ancestors. Seeing Naruto looking at him like that, Nagato asked in confusion, brother, what is this? Naruto waved his hand and said, don't worry about the identity of the masked man. I'll tell you about this in detail when I'm free that day. Nagato nodded and said, although I don't have the Samsara Eye anymore, I can still perform the Rain Tiger Free technique. Konan agreed, my Shikigami dance can quickly cover the entire village after the rain stops. Naruto thought, the masked man knows all these abilities. If he really comes, and you think something is wrong, activate the mark and let me come back. Konan and Nagato nodded. Okay, that's all I have to tell you. By the way, senior sister Xiaonan, you and senior brother Nagato can look for good talents in the village and select them to train as reserve members of RTN organization. I have to go out for a while and may not be back for several days. Xiaonan nodded and said, okay, I guessed it when I heard you say you were making uniforms. Naruto smiled and looked at each other's brand new Tien uniforms. Naruto was very pleased. Tien, it has begun. After Naruto told Konan and Nagato about the trip, he was ready to leave. On this trip, he would first meet Obito. Thinking of the flying thunder god mark that his father had marked on Obito, Naruto smiled slightly. Then he began to make hand seals and look for the mark. Found it. Naruto smiled slightly, and then flew directly over with flying thunder god. The secret base of the White Zetsu army. Obito was standing with Kabuto. So, this is your secret weapon. Kabuto looked at the endless White Zetsu army in front of him, and his eyes revealed desire. Obito's cold voice came from the mask. Over the years, a total of 100,000 White Zetsu troops have been created to prepare for future wars. Kabuto pushed his gold-rimmed glasses and said, really? Then I have to show some sincerity here. Obito frowned and said, what can you do? Kabuto smiled evilly and said, I can use someone's ability to help you strengthen these White Zetsu and make their combat effectiveness stronger. Obito said, oh, wondering what kind of strengthening Kabuto could do. Kabuto listened to Obito's tone and knew that he was disdainful. So he said, Yamato of Konoha can use wood release perfectly. I can help you capture him and then use his body to strengthen these White Zetsu. Obito thought about it. This suggestion was indeed good. As for wood release, he could also use it because he had half of Hashirama's cells. However, he could not strengthen such a large White Zetsu army without a thorough study of Hashirama's cells. From this point of view, Kabuto's value is indeed great. Kabuto looked at Obito and sneered, moreover, I can also provide you with a large number of combat soldiers through the impure world reincarnation. Many of them are famous ninjas in the past, and their combat strength is very strong. Of course, this also includes members of the Akatsuki organization who have died, such as Uchiha Itachi. By the way, I am also envious of Uchiha Sasuke's body. Obito frowned. Itachi's body was clearly placed here. When did Kabuto do this? Also, why is this guy so interested in Sasuke like Orochimaru? Are you a little too greedy? Obito said sternly. Kabuto smiled coldly and said playfully, greedy. After that, Kabuto made hand seals and summoned a coffin. I'll show you something fun. As he spoke, the lid of the coffin fell. Obito looked at the person lying in the coffin, and his body trembled slightly. He gritted his teeth and said, Kabuto, you fool. Kabuto stood beside the coffin, looked at Obito and smiled. Snakes have a keen sense of smell and can sense many subtle changes from the environment. It took me a lot of effort to successfully summon it. Moreover, according to Lord Orochimaru's previous research and my exploration over the years, this body was almost reincarnated in a perfect state of prosperity. I believe that it will be more helpful for our plans. In this case, shouldn't you be more honest with me? Looking at Kabuto's sharp eyes, Obito's chest rose and fell. He was actually caught. Because the person lying in the coffin was none other than Uchiha Madara. Kabuto, this guy, actually summoned him out. So, all the corpses that he had hidden were found by Kabuto. This guy, Obito sneered and said, no problem, I can open my resources to you, and I am indeed not Uchiha Madara, I am his successor, and this plan is also led by him. As he said, Obito took off his mask and looked at Kabuto with his true face. My real name is Uchiha Obito. Kabuto watched Obito take off his mask and told his true identity. According to the information he had, many things were figured out in an instant. It seems that you and I are the same kind of people, both on each other's path, looking for our true selves. Obito put on his mask again and said, since you think we are on the same path, let's officially start the cooperation. Akatsuki, today is different from the past. Talents have been withered, which is why Obito took the initiative to find Kabuto for cooperation. He is in urgent need of a strong helper now. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to capture the 8 tails and the 9 tails with his current strength. Moreover, Naruto already knew his identity, so many secret plans were no longer suitable for implementation. For example, now that Kabuto had found out everything. This is not Uchiha Madara. For Kabuto, Obito's initiative to find him was really unexpected and pleasant. Because, since he got Madara's body and successfully summoned the spirit, he was no longer afraid of the masked man. After all this time, it turned out to be a fake. So, Kabuto also wanted to meet the masked man and talk about cooperation. Because Kabuto collected a large number of corpses and resurrected them, just to make a big thing in the ninja world. On the one hand, Kabuto wanted to prove that he surpassed Orochimaru. On the other hand, Kabuto also wanted to see the ninja world in chaos and killing each other, which would be better for him, a ninja who survives in the dark. Secondly, he also wanted Sasuke's body to continue the research that Orochimaru had not completed. War is just right for people to die. For Kabuto, as an SSS card collector, this is the best thing. Kabuto looked at Obito and asked, since we have chosen to cooperate, I want to know what is the current situation of the Samsara Eye. According to the intelligence, Kabuto found that Pain seemed to have separated from Akatsuki. What was even more outrageous was that Naruto actually got together with Pain and established a new organization. Oh my god. This really made Kabuto feel that the world was getting more and more lively. Obito frowned and said, I will take care of this matter. I will find a way to get the Samsara Eye back. Don't bother, I will give it to you when I'm done with it. Hearing the strange voice, Obito and Kabuto were instantly alert. Who is it? Obito shouted in a deep voice. In the darkness, Naruto slowly opened his eyes and walked out slowly. Those eyes. The purple light flashing in the dark. Kabuto said excitedly. Obito frowned slightly. Was it Nagato's Pain who came? When Naruto appeared, Obito's eyes widened. Naruto. Naruto's mouth curled up slightly, looking at Uchiha Obito and smiled. What's wrong, Obito? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you feel so strange when you see me. Kabuto was no less shocked than Obito at this moment. First, Naruto actually possessed the Samsara Eye. Second, Naruto actually knew the true identity of the masked man. Third, from Obito's reaction, it was obvious that he didn't know about Naruto's arrival, so how did Naruto find such a secret place? Just thinking about it, Obito spoke. What did you do to Nagato? He actually successfully transplanted the Samsara Eye. And how did you find this place? Naruto chuckled, then walked aside and looked at the huge army of white Zetsu underground. He nodded and said thoughtfully, this looks like a primary version, Kabuto. Remember to go to Konoha to kidnap Captain Yamato and strengthen these white Zetsu armies. Hearing Naruto's words, Kabuto's face suddenly turned bad. Isn't this the plan he just proposed? So, Naruto has been here for a long time. It's impossible. He has already learned the immortal method from the dragon cave and successfully shed his skin from a snake to become a dragon. He just sensed Naruto's arrival. There is no way Naruto could stay by his side quietly for so long. Obito looked at Naruto with a serious look on his face. He really couldn't see through Naruto. In the past, Obito felt that Naruto was very similar to him when he was young. He even wanted to turn Naruto into a villain and let the Nine Tails join. But now, Naruto, who had the Samsara Eye and looked like a leader inspecting, came here, which made Obito extremely uneasy. He had only experienced this kind of uneasiness in Uchiha Madara. That kind of calm expression that was in control of the overall situation made Obito very annoyed. Naruto, you haven't answered my question yet. Faced with Obito's questioning, Naruto slowly turned his head, glanced at him with an indifferent look and said, "I came here just to talk to you." Obito sneered. "Did I hear it right? You who have always been aiming to be the Hokage actually want to talk to the leader of the Akatsuki organization in the ninja world?" Naruto paced here and said, "I'm not here to argue with you. I know that the two of you are here today to discuss how to start a ninja world war. You, Obito, want to realize your Munai plan. You, Kabuto, also want to realize your life meaning plan. And I, Naruto, explain my position, and I can also help you realize your plan." Hearing Naruto's words, Obito and Kabuto said in unison, "What?" Naruto spread his hands helplessly and said, "I know you don't believe me, and I don't need you to believe me. I came here to tell you that the Ten organization, that is, my consciousness, can accommodate your plan. When necessary, Obito, I can also give you the samsara eye. Kabuto, I can also help you find the meaning of your life. After all, your master and leader Orochimaru is right beside me." Kabuto was very shocked and said, "Lord Orochimaru is resurrected?" Naruto nodded and said, "Yes, I resurrected him. But compared to you, Uncle Snake has much more pursuits. On the road of truth, he keeps searching. Look at yourself. Don't think that you have gone to the Raikage cave and transformed from a snake into a dragon, and you think you have surpassed Orochimaru and are very great." Kabuto was very angry and very scared. Angry because he was so awesome, but Naruto said it was worthless. Scared because Naruto actually knew his trump card, and accurately said his change of mentality. Who is this kid and why does he know so many things? In his previous life, Naruto, as the 7th Hokage, had provided shelter to Kabuto, allowing him to find his own Kabuto, recognize his own Kabuto, become the director of an orphanage, and live happily with his brother in the orphanage. Kabuto also talked to Naruto about his past, especially the battle with Itachi. Later, when Naruto led Sasuke and his party to fight Uchiha Shin, he also collected many clones with Sharingan and sent them directly to Kabuto's orphanage and handed them over to Kabuto. Therefore, Naruto knew everything about Kabuto. Naruto looked at Kabuto's angry look, and then said to Obito, "By the way, Obito, the 5 Kage. A meeting will be held in the Iron Kingdom soon, and the target is Sasuke. Sasuke had a fight with me before, and his Susanoo evolved thoroughly, but the limit of the Mangekyo was not pushed out. You can plan to stir up the seeds of hatred for genocide, so that he can have a more thorough understanding of hatred." Quote. Obito frowned and said, "Why don't you go there in person?" Naruto said helplessly, "You also know the relationship between Sasuke and me. If I go, it will be counterproductive." Obito was silent. Then, Obito frowned and said, "Naruto, what is your purpose?" Quote. Obito no longer looked at Naruto with the eyes of a little brat, because Naruto at this moment has stood at a height that seems to be higher than him and is doing things. From what Naruto said just now, we can see that he is playing chess. The fight with Sasuke before seemed to be intentional. Even today, he came to find himself to play chess. This is terrible, because Obito knows that he may be on the chessboard, but he doesn't know what chess game Naruto is playing. Naruto sighed, thinking about the scene in his previous life, finding his own Obito and saving himself. He looked at Obito with melancholy and said, "When you know, you will know naturally." Then, Naruto slowly walked out, saying as he walked, "I know you want the Samsara Eye to control some things. Don't worry, when the time is right, I will consider giving it to you." Quote. After saying that, Naruto jumped away directly. Naruto did not choose to leave with Flying Thunder God. Because, he wanted Kabuto and Obito to guess why he could appear out of thin air. Guessing in the mind and actually verifying are two different things. If you can't see through it, you will be indecisive and afraid. Even if Obito guessed it, he wouldn't tell Kabuto. After all, who would take the initiative to expose scars? Then for Kabuto, Naruto's sense of mystery is even stronger. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.